Between 1811 and 1820, one wrong look could destroy your entire family's reputation in Regency England. Marriage wasn't about love. It was about money, status, and whether your family would survive the next decade. This is what finding someone to marry actually looked like when your reputation mattered more than your life. So yeah, if this works for you, subscribe. Also, where are you right now? Someone commented last week they listened during lunch in Canada. Didn't expect that, but cool. We're going to Regency England in a second. Get comfortable first. Adjust whatever you need to. You won't want to move once we start. You wake with a start. Your heart hammering against your ribs, the echo of your mother's voice still ringing in your ears. Remember, this season is everything. Absolutely everything. Your eyes adjust to the dim light filtering through heavy curtains as your lady's maid Mary pulls them back. The London townhouse is nothing like your country estate. Smaller, the air thicker, smelling of coal smoke and the rose water sprinkled on your sheets. Even the sounds are different. Rather than birdsong, you hear carriage wheels on cobblestones, street vendors calling out their wares, and the constant thrum of humanity packed together in the fashionable part of town. "Good morning, miss," Mary says, setting down a tray of chocolate. "Your mother insists you must be ready by noon. The cards have been arriving all morning." The cards, invitations. Your stomach clenches. Not like that pleasant nervous flutter you feel when reading a novel or seeing a handsome stranger across a room. No, this is dread, pure and consuming. Unlike your warm, comfortable bed right now, your future hangs in perfect, terrifying balance. "How many?" you ask, pushing yourself up against the pillows. 7 so far, including one from Lady Jersey for Almack's on Wednesday. You nearly spill the chocolate down your nightgown. Almack's, the most exclusive assembly rooms in London, where the highest of high society gathers to dance, gossip, and most importantly, find suitable marriage partners. Mother must have called in every favour, you mutter, taking a careful sip. Mary nods, already laying out your morning dress. She was up at dawn writing notes, said something about not having another season to waste. You're 20, you see, practically on the shelf by Regency standards. Girls make their debut at 16 or 17. You should have been married years ago, but your father's illness delayed your season. Now you're playing catch-up in the most competitive marriage market in the world. And it is a market. Make no mistake about that. "She's right, you know," says a voice from the doorway. Your older sister Caroline stands there, already dressed for the day. At 26, she's firmly on the shelf, having refused 2 perfectly suitable offers in her youth. She now serves as a cautionary tale and designated chaperone. One wrong step, one social misstep, and we might as well pack our trunks and return to Derbyshire in disgrace. You roll your eyes when she turns away, but your sister's not wrong. Unlike today, when you can swipe right and ghost someone without consequence, the courtship rules of Regency England were rigid, complex, and merciless. "The Carrington girl has apparently caught Lord Pembroke's eye," Caroline continues, helping herself to a piece of toast from your tray. Though how that happened with her squint and those teeth, heaven only knows. Her father owns half of Yorkshire, you remind her. Precisely my point. It's not about beauty, it's about connections and fortune. You've heard this lecture your entire life. Unlike modern dating, which supposedly centres on compatibility and attraction, Regency courtship was primarily about securing good matches, financially and socially advantageous unions. Love? A nice bonus if you could get it, but certainly not required. Here's the thing about being a young unmarried woman in Regency England. You're basically a commodity, an investment. Your family has spent years and considerable fortune preparing you, teaching you to play the pianoforte passably well, to sing sweetly, but never too powerfully, to dance every fashionable dance, to speak a little French, to paint watercolors of flowers and landscapes, to embroider handkerchiefs, and to make utterly pointless small talk with utterly boring people. And now it's time to see if that investment pays off. Mary helps you dress for the morning, a simple muslin gown with minimal ornamentation. The style is still relatively new, having replaced the structured, corseted fashions of the previous century. Women's dresses now feature high waistlines just under the bust, leaving the rest to fall in a straight line to the floor. It's comfortable compared to what your mother wore in her youth, but you're still tightly laced underneath. Not too tight, you remind Mary as she pulls the stays. I'd like to be able to breathe today. Your mother specifically said, "My mother isn't the one having her internal organs rearranged," you counter, though you know it's futile. A small waist is still prized, even with the new fashions. Once dressed, your hair arranged in simple curls around your face, you descend to the breakfast room where your mother is already reviewing the day's schedule with military precision. Lady Worthington's musical at 2, then calls until 4, then home to change for dinner at the Pembrokes at 6, followed by Lady Sefton's ball. She barely looks up as you enter. I've had your blue silk pressed for tonight. The colour suits you, and the Pembrokes will be bringing their second son. Recently returned from the peninsula with a colonel's pension and looking to settle. "Good morning to you too, mother," you say, reaching for the toast. She ignores your sarcasm. The season is short and the competition fierce. We don't have the luxury of time. Wait, hold up. Let me paint a picture of what's going on here. The season she's talking about? It's basically this few-month window when all the upper-crust families descended on London, when Parliament was in session. From roughly January to June, the aristocracy and landed gentry abandoned their country estates to crowd into their London townhouses for one reason: to see and be seen. For young women like you, it's the only socially acceptable way to meet eligible men. There's no dating apps, no meeting someone at work, you don't work, no running into a cute guy at a coffee shop, you don't go out unchaperoned. This season is your one shot at finding a husband. And let me tell you, the whole thing was basically a meat market dressed up in silk and manners. I heard the Duke of Harrington will be at Lady Sefton's tonight, your father mentions, glancing up from his newspaper. His son as well. The Marquess? Your mother perks up immediately. A Marquess is just below a Duke in rank, serious aristocracy. Isn't he still in mourning for his wife? Ended last month. Word at my club is he's looking to marry again. Needs a mother for his children. The calculating look on your mother's face would put a chess grandmaster to shame. We must ensure you stand up with him for at least one dance, she tells you. Though not more than 2, of course. Of course not. That's another Regency courtship rule for you. Dancing more than 2 dances with the same partner at a ball was practically announcing your engagement. Dancing the first dance or the supper dance with someone was particularly significant. It basically told everyone in the room, we're interested in each other. He's nearly 40, you protest. He's a Marquess, your mother counters, as if that erases 2 decades of age difference. With 3 estates and connections to the royal family. You look to your father for support, but he's disappeared behind his newspaper again. This is how it goes. Your mother manages the social chess game of getting you married off, Your father provides the funds and occasional strategic advice. Now, your mother continues, we must discuss how to comport yourself. You'll need to be vivacious but not forward, intelligent but not intimidating, accomplished but not showing off. As she drones on, you let your mind wander. You've heard this speech 100 times before. The impossible tightrope walk of Regency courtship for women. Be desirable but not desiring. Be pure but not cold. Be educated but not opinionated. Are you listening? Your mother's sharp voice cuts through your thoughts. Yes, mother. Vivacious but not forward. I understand. She narrows her eyes, not believing you for a second. This isn't a game, dear. Your entire future, and by extension the family's, depends on making a good match. Your father's estate is entailed to his cousin upon his death. We've managed to set aside a modest dowry, but without a husband you'll be dependent on relatives' charity. And there it is, the brutal economics of being a woman in 1812. You can't inherit property. You can't have a profession. Your options are marriage or spinsterhood, living on whatever charity your family can spare. At least in your comfortable bed at night, you have some protection. These unmarried Regency women, they were one male relative's death away from potential poverty. After breakfast, you and Caroline prepare for the day's first social engagement, a morning call to Lady Worthington, your mother's old friend who has promised to take an interest in your season. In other words, she'll introduce you to the right people, share gossip about eligible bachelors, and generally help navigate the treacherous social waters. Your mother inspects you before you leave, adjusting a curl, straightening your Spencer jacket. Remember, first impressions are critical, she says, and for heaven's sake don't mention books. Men don't want to marry a bluestocking. Heaven forbid you show any sign of an active mind. The carriage ride to Lady Worthington's is short, just a few streets over in Mayfair. As you travel, Caroline gives you last-minute advice. Don't sit too close to any gentleman. Don't laugh too loudly. Don't express strong opinions. Don't eat too much at tea. Don't stare. Don't fidget. And whatever you do, don't find yourself alone with a man, even for a minute. So basically, don't be human, you mutter. Caroline gives you a sharp look. One misstep, one hint of impropriety, and your reputation is ruined. And once ruined, there's no recovery. That's not an exaggeration. In the Regency era, a young woman's reputation was her most valuable possession. More valuable than beauty, than accomplishments, than even money in some cases. Because once it was tarnished, no respectable man would offer for her. Gossip spread through the ton. That's what they called high society. Faster than a pandemic through a cruise ship. You're being dramatic, you say, though you know she isn't. Remember Eliza Hartwell from 3 seasons ago? You nod slowly. Everyone remembered Eliza. Caught in Lord Pemberton's library during a ball, alone, for less than 5 minutes. They were simply discussing a book by all accounts, but it didn't matter. Not a single offer that season nor the next. She married a merchant from Manchester in the end, lives there now, completely cut off from society. The horror in Caroline's voice when she says merchant tells you everything about class distinctions in Regency England. The aristocracy at the top, then the gentry, then the professional classes, and God forbid you married into trade. Wait, that's not entirely fair. Money was always the great equalizer. A very wealthy merchant's daughter might catch a cash-strapped nobleman. It happened. But there would always be whispers. always the slight curl of the lip when someone mentioned that his wife's father made his fortune in a cotton. The carriage pulls up to Lady Worthington's townhouse, a grand affair with columns and freshly painted black railings. A footman helps you down, and you follow your mother and sister to the door, your heart pounding slightly faster. This is it, your entry into the marriage market, the start of your audition for the role of someone's wife. Lady Worthington's drawing room is already crowded when you arrive, despite the early hour. Morning calls typically happen between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m., and the fashionable set makes dozens in a single day, staying just long enough to be seen, exchange gossip, and move on to the next house. Mrs. Harrington, and Miss Harrington, and Miss Caroline, how delightful, Lady Worthington exclaims, rising to greet you. She's a plump, cheerful woman in her 50s, draped in more jewellery than is strictly appropriate for mourning, but her position in society is secure enough that she can bend such rules. She kisses your mother on both cheeks and then turns her appraising eye on you. My dear, you've grown even lovelier since I saw you last summer. Such fine eyes, and your complexion. We must introduce you to everyone immediately. This is good. This is what you want. Lady Worthington's approval means something in this world. The right introduction from her can open doors. She leads you around the room, performing the necessary introductions. This is another critical rule of Regency courtship. You cannot speak to someone to whom you haven't been properly introduced by a mutual acquaintance. No sliding into DMs here. No casual hi at a bar. Everything must be formal. Everything must follow protocol. Lady Harrington, Miss Harrington, Miss Caroline Harrington, may I present Lord and Lady Pembroke and their son, Mr. James Pembroke. You curtsy, they bow. Pleasantries are exchanged. This happens a dozen times as you make your way around the room. Names blur together, but you force yourself to remember them. Forgetting someone's name or title is a social sin in this world. Then, across the room, you see him. Tall, dark-haired, with a face that appears to have been carved specifically to make young ladies lose their train of thought. He's standing with an older woman, listening attentively to whatever she's saying, but his eyes, piercing even at this distance, briefly meet yours. You look away immediately, heart hammering. Looking too long at a gentleman is considered forward, but you can't help glancing back, and this time he's definitely watching you. "Who is that?" you whisper to Caroline, trying to appear casual. She follows your gaze and her eyes widen slightly. The Marquis of Westmoreland, the Duke of Harrington's son, the one father mentioned at breakfast. The Marquess, the eligible widower, the aristocrat your mother is already plotting to make your husband. "He's younger than I expected," you murmur. "Not 40 at all, perhaps 30 at most." "His father is the one in his 40s, Caroline corrects. "The Marquis is 28, I believe. His wife died in childbirth last year." Before you can inquire further, Lady Worthington is at your side again, and to your horror and secret delight, she's bringing the Marquis himself over for an introduction. "Lady Harrington, Miss Harrington, Miss Caroline, allow me to present the Marquis of Westmoreland. Lord Westmoreland, may I introduce Lady Harrington and her daughters, Miss Harrington and Miss Caroline Harrington." You curtsy, desperately trying to remember all your mother's instructions. Not too deep, not too shallow. Grace and elegance, back straight. Gentle smile, eyes modestly lowered, but not completely. A quick glance up through lashes is considered enchanting. "It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance," the Marquis says, his voice deeper than you expected. "The pleasure is ours, my lord," your mother responds smoothly. You remain silent, as befits an unmarried young lady upon first introduction. Another rule: don't speak until spoken to. Don't appear too eager. Let the gentleman lead the conversation. "I understand you've just arrived in London for the season," he asks, addressing you directly. "Now you can speak." "Yes, my lord. Only yesterday." "And how do you find town after the country? Louder, and with considerably fewer trees." "Oh God, did you just make a joke? To a marquess? On first acquaintance? You can practically feel your mother's horrified gaze burning into the side of your head." But then the Marquis does something unexpected. He laughs, a genuine laugh, not the polite chuckle of social obligation. An accurate assessment: the lack of trees is particularly deplorable, though I'm told the social advantages make up for the absence of nature. Is he teasing? Are you having actual banter with one of England's most eligible bachelors? "So I've been informed, my lord," you reply cautiously, "though I've yet to confirm it for myself. Perhaps you'll have an opportunity tonight. I believe we're both attending Lady Sefton's ball." Your mother jumps in before you can respond. "Indeed we are, Lord Westmoreland. We look forward to seeing you there." It's a dismissal, however polite. One does not monopolise a gentleman's attention during morning calls. It wouldn't be proper. The Marquis bows slightly. "Until tonight, then." As he moves away to speak with other guests, your mother grips your arm a little too tightly. "Well done," she whispers. "He noticed you. That's the first step." You nod, but you're not thinking about social climbing or advantageous matches. You're thinking about dark eyes that crinkled when he laughed, and the way he seemed to actually see you, not just another marriage prospect in a muslin dress. And that, right there, is the most dangerous thing in the Regency courtship game: genuine attraction. Because feelings, emotions, desire, those complicated everything. The game wasn't designed for love. It was designed for social order, for the preservation of bloodlines and fortunes, for alliance building between powerful families. Love was a happy accident at best, an inconvenience at worst. As the morning call continues, you find yourself searching the room for another glimpse of the Marquess. But he's engaged in conversation with an elderly gentleman near the window. Finally, after the appropriate amount of time has passed, your mother signals that it's time to leave. You have other calls to make, other drawing rooms to grace with your presence, other potential suitors to meet. In the carriage, your mother is practically glowing. Lord Westmoreland himself, and he singled you out. This is a promising beginning indeed. You say nothing, watching London pass by outside the window. Your first day in the marriage market, and already the game has begun. But something tells you it's going to be far more complicated than your mother thinks. Because while she sees a title and a fortune, you glimpsed something else in those dark eyes. Something that makes your heart beat a little faster, your breath catch a little sharper. And in Regency England, that's where the trouble always begins. As you head to your next social obligation, you ponder the Byzantine rules that govern this world you've entered. The London season is like a carefully choreographed dance where everyone knows the steps except you. One wrong move, and you might never recover. But you're learning, and quickly. Because in this world, there's no room for error when your entire future hangs in the balance. The sun is high now, filtering through the carriage windows and warming your face. You close your eyes briefly, gathering your strength. Your real Regency courtship journey has just begun, and already you can tell this is going to be a season to remember, for better or for worse. Morning comes with the persistent sound of London outside your window. Horses' hooves, merchant calls, the occasional angry shout. your eyes open to the unfamiliar ceiling of your London townhouse bedroom. For a moment, you forget where you are, reaching for the familiar comfort of your countryside canopy. But no, you're in London now, the marriage market, the season. Mary bustles in with chocolate and toast. "Rise and shine, miss. Your mother's already asking for you." Of course she is. After yesterday's introduction to the Marquis of Westmoreland, she's probably planning the wedding breakfast already. "Tell her I'm indisposed," you mutter, pulling the blanket over your head. "I'd rather face Napoleon himself than tell your mother that," Mary says, yanking the covers away. "She's in a state this morning. Apparently Lady Pembroke snubbed her at Lady Worthington's after we left." You groan, sitting up and accepting the chocolate. Society politics are exhausting, and you've barely dipped your toe in the waters. What kind of snub? The cutting kind. Turned her back amid conversation to speak with. The Duchess of Devonshire. Oh, that's bad. In the Regency social battlefield, subtle gestures carry the weight of cannonballs. A turned back, a lifted eyebrow, a seat not offered. These small actions can devastate reputations and close doors. It's a language all its own, and you're still learning the vocabulary. Did Mother do something to offend her, you ask, though you suspect the answer. Mary shrugs, laying out your morning dress, pale yellow muslin with tiny embroidered flowers along the hem. "All I know is she's been writing notes since dawn and has rearranged today's schedule 3 times. You sigh, swinging your legs over the side of the bed. The wooden floor is cold beneath your bare feet, not like your thick carpets at home. Another reminder that you're somewhere new, playing by unfamiliar rules. As Mary helps you dress, pinning your hair into a simple but elegant arrangement of curls, you stare out the window at the narrow slice of London visible between buildings. The sky is grey, threatening rain, fitting for your mood. "There now," Mary says, stepping back to admire her work. "You look lovely, understated but refined, perfect for morning calls." You study your reflection in the looking glass. The yellow brings some colour to your cheeks, and the style is flattering, but not too eye-catching, which is exactly the point. Morning visits require modest attire. Save the drama for evening balls. Your mother is indeed in the breakfast room, scribbling furiously on a piece of stationery. She barely looks up when you enter. "Finally," she says, folding the note and sealing it with his wax. "I've had to completely restructure our day. We'll no longer be attending the Pembrokes' dinner this evening." "Because of the snub?" you ask, reaching for a piece of toast. Your mother's eyes snap to yours. "How did you—" "Never mind." "Yes, because Lady Pembroke has shown her true colours. To think I once considered her a friend. The nerve of that woman, with her husband's gambling debts and her son's questionable associations." She continues in this vein for several minutes, her indignation growing with each perceived slight against the Pembroke family. This is another Regency survival skill, knowing whose star is rising and whose is falling, and adjusting your social calendar accordingly. "Instead," she says finally, composing herself, "we've been invited to dine with the Cartwrights. Sir William mentioned it yesterday, and I've sent a note accepting." You try to remember the Cartwrights from yesterday's whirlwind of introductions. The family with the 3 daughters, all married well? Precisely. Your mother nods approvingly. Lady Cartwright is known for her successful matchmaking. 5 daughters, all married to titles, and Sir William is quite close with the Duke of Harrington. And there it is, the Duke, father to the Marquis who caught your eye yesterday. Your mother is reworking her strategy, finding alternate paths to the same destination. I'll wear the blue silk then, you confirm, knowing it's your best dinner dress. No, the green. The blue is for Lady Sefton's ball later. We must save something special for when we see the Marquess again. She says this so matter-of-factly, as if your future is already decided, mapped out in a series of carefully selected gowns and strategic appearances. It chafes, but you say nothing. This is how the game is played. After breakfast, you join your mother and Caroline in the carriage for the morning's round of calls. The weather has turned, a fine drizzle now falling over London, which means fewer calls but longer stays at each house. No one wants to be constantly moving between carriages in the rain. Remember, your mother says as the carriage pulls up to the first house, the Brightons have a son recently returned from Oxford. Second son, so no title, but a handsome living as a clergyman. Perfectly respectable. You nod dutifully. A clergyman isn't as exciting as a marquess, but your mother is nothing if not thorough in her cataloguing of eligible men. She's covering all bases, from the spectacular match to the merely acceptable. The Brightons' drawing room is warm and welcoming, a fire crackling in the grate against the damp day. Mrs. Brighton greets you effusively, introducing her son Edward, a pleasant-faced young man of about 25, somewhat shy but with kind eyes. Miss Harrington, he says with a bow, a pleasure to make your acquaintance. You curtsy in return. The pleasure is mine, Mr. Brighton. This is it, the beginning of a potential courtship. The formal introduction has been made, and now you're free to engage in conversation under the watchful eyes of your mothers. It's as close to privacy as unmarried young people get in this era. I understand you're recently come from Derbyshire, he asks, taking a seat nearby, but not too near. Proximity is strictly regulated in Regency courtship. Yes, our estate is near Matlock, you reply. Do you know the area? I visited once as a boy. Beautiful country, very different from London. You smile, relaxing slightly. This is safe territory, bland observations about geography. Nothing too personal, nothing that could be considered forward. And you've been at Oxford, I understand, you ask, demonstrating that you've been properly briefed on his background. It's considered flattering to show interest in a gentleman's education or career. He nods, warming to the subject. Yes, studying theology. I've just been appointed to a living in Hertfordshire. Small parish, but quite charming. The conversation continues in this vein. Pleasant, proper, utterly unremarkable. Edward Brighton is exactly what a young clergyman should be. Respectable, educated, mild-mannered. He would make a perfectly suitable husband for someone. Just not you, you realise with an internal sigh. There's no spark, no connection. Nothing like the brief but charged interaction with the Marquess. Your mother, watching from across the room, seems to sense your lack of enthusiasm. She swoops in with a comment about the weather, effectively ending your tête-à-tête with Edward. Back in the carriage, she wastes no time. Well, what did you think of Mr. Brighton? He seems very nice, you offer, which is both true and damning with faint praise. Your mother's lips thin. Nice is underrated, my dear. Nice puts food on the table and a roof over your head. I thought we were aiming considerably higher than a roof, you can't help retorting, thinking of the Marquess and his undoubtedly magnificent estates. We are pursuing all viable options, she corrects. A smart general never commits all his forces to a single battle. Military metaphors aside, your mother's not wrong. The competition for the highest prizes in the marriage market, wealthy peers with titles and estates, is fierce. The season brings hundreds of young women to London, all the same goal, to secure the best possible match. Many will settle for far less than they hoped. The rain picks up as the carriage moves through London's crowded streets. Your next call is to the Merryweathers, a wealthy family recently elevated by the king for service to the crown. New money, new title, exactly the kind of family the old aristocracy both needs and resents. The Merryweathers' wealth comes from trade, Caroline informs you in a whisper as you approach their imposing townhouse. West Indies sugar. They bought the baronetcy just 3 years ago. And yet we're calling on them, you ask, genuinely curious. The rules of class in Regency England could be rigid, but also surprisingly flexible when money was involved. Lady Merryweather is cousin to Lady Jersey, your mother explains, naming one of the powerful patronesses of Almack's assembly rooms, and their son is said to have 30,000 a year. One can overlook certain origins for that kind of fortune. In other words, new money is still money, and the aristocracy, for all its pretensions, is often cash poor. Many a noble family has been saved from ruin by marrying a daughter of trade with a hefty dowry. The Merryweathers' drawing room speaks volumes about their position in society. Everything is new, expensive, and just slightly too ornate to be in the best taste. Mrs. Merryweather, Lady Merryweather now, is dressed in the height of fashion, perhaps a touch too elaborately for morning calls. Lady Harrington, Miss Caroline, how delightful, she exclaims, her accent betraying hints of a less refined upbringing than she'd probably like. Please do come in. The weather is simply dreadful, isn't it? You're introduced to the assembled company, including the Merryweather's son, Sir James, a handsome enough young man with an air of someone still growing accustomed to his newfound status. He bows correctly, but doesn't quite meet your eyes. Sir James has just purchased a racing curricle, Lady Merryweather announces proudly, the very same model as the Prince Regent's. The curricle, a light, fast, two-wheeled carriage pulled by matched horses, is the sports car of Regency England. Expensive, showy, and slightly dangerous. Perfect for a young man eager to establish himself in society. How impressive, your mother replies with a smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. This is the subtle dance of class in action. The Merryweathers, despite their new title and enormous wealth, are trying too hard. The old aristocracy, like your mother, notices every misstep, every slight gaudiness, every hint that they weren't born to this world. But they'll never say so directly. That wouldn't be polite. And yet, as the visit progresses, you can't help but warm to Lady Merryweather. She's trying so earnestly, and beneath the slightly overdone exterior is as genuine kindness. When she mentions a charitable project for war widows, her passion is real and admirable. Miss Harrington, Sir James says, finally approaching after half an hour of lurking near the window. I understand you're new to London this season. You confirm that yes, this is your first proper season, having been delayed by family matters. Then perhaps you haven't yet seen Hyde Park during the fashionable hour. It's quite the spectacle on a fine day. This is a subtle invitation, not to a private outing, which would be scandalously improper, but to a public appearance where you might happen to encounter each other. I've not yet had the pleasure, you reply carefully. Weather permitting, everyone who is anyone rides or drives there between 5 and 7, he continues. My curricle is a particular shade of blue that's quite distinctive. In other words, look for me, I'll be showing off my expensive carriage. You smile non-committally, neither encouraging nor rebuffing. It's a skill you're quickly developing, the art of keeping options open without committing to anything. When the visit ends, your mother is surprisingly positive about the Merryweathers. New money, yes, but a good deal of it. and a baronet is nothing to sneeze at. Sir James seems properly taken with you. He seemed most taken with his curricle, to be honest, you reply as the carriage pulls away. Caroline laughs. Men and their toys. But Mother's right. He'd be a solid match. Not spectacular like the Marquis, but respectable and wealthy. You're learning that the Regency marriage market is all about tiers. At the top are the peers, dukes, marquises, earls, viscounts, and barons in descending order of status. Then come the baronets and knights, then landed gentry without titles, but with good family names and estates. Then the professions, clergymen, military officers, lawyers, doctors, and finally, trade and commerce, regardless of wealth. But there are complications and exceptions. A duke's penniless younger son might rank below a wealthy baronet in actual marriage prospects. An earl's daughter might marry a rich merchant to save her family's estate from debt. Money matters, blood matters, but the precise calculus is complex and ever-changing. The rain has stopped by the time you reach your third call of the day to the elderly Countess of Wexford. This visit is less about meeting eligible men and more about paying respect to an influential society matron who can either help or hinder your progress. The Countess's drawing room is a time capsule from the previous century. Heavy brocade curtains, ornate furniture, and a distinct lack of modern comforts. The Countess herself matches her surroundings, regal, intimidating, and unapologetically old-fashioned in her powdered wig and rouge. "So," she says after the preliminaries, fixing you with a penetrating stare, "you're Edward Harrington's girl. I knew your grandmother. Spirited woman. Too spirited by half." You're not sure how to respond to that. "Thank you, my lady," she cackles. "Wasn't a compliment, girl. She nearly caused a scandal running off with that Italian music master. Your grandfather caught them just in time." Your mother looks mortified. This is not the kind of family history one wants aired in polite company. But the Countess seems to be enjoying herself enormously. "I see you have her eyes," she continues. "Let's hope you don't have her impulsiveness as well. The ton isn't forgiving of young ladies who step outside the lines." "I assure you, Lady Wexford, my daughter has been raised with the strictest propriety," your mother interjects. The Countess waves this away. Of course. But blood tells, my dear. Blood tells." She turns back to you. "I hear Westmoreland noticed you at Worthington's yesterday. Interesting." You feel your cheeks warm slightly. How does she know that? The old gossip network is terrifyingly efficient. "It was a brief introduction, nothing more," you say carefully. She studies you like a particularly interesting insect. Handsome man, the Marquis. Rich as Croesus. Still mourning his wife, they say. But it's been a year. Proper mourning time observed. He'll be looking to marry again soon. Needs an heir. This bluntness about marriage prospects would be shocking from anyone else, but the elderly Countess can get away with it. Age and rank have their privileges. "Lady Wexford, really?" your mother protests weakly. "Oh, don't be such a prude, Harriet. We all know why you've brought your daughter to London, and it's not for the theatre. The girl should know what she's up against. Half the mammas in London have their eyes on Westmoreland for their daughters." The Countess leans forward, dropping her voice conspiratorially. "Word of advice, girl. If you want to catch him, don't play the simpering miss. His first wife was a spirited thing. Clever, opinionated. He liked that about her. These modern men, they claim to want biddable wives, but the clever ones know better. You're not sure whether to be scandalized or grateful for this unexpected advice. Before you can decide, the Countess changes the subject abruptly, asking about your father's health and the condition of your family estate. The moment of frankness is over, but her words linger in your mind. The visit concludes with an unexpected boon, an invitation to a small dinner party at the Countess's home next week. Just 20 or so people, intimate gathering. Westmoreland will be there, and the Cartwrights. No Merryweathers, though. I have standards. In the carriage ride home, your mother is practically giddy. An invitation to Lady Wexford's dinner. That's a coup. She only entertains the most select company. And did you hear? The Marquis will be there. I heard, you reply, thinking about the Countess's advice. Don't play the simpering miss. Be clever. Be spirited. It's almost the opposite of everything you've been taught about proper behaviour for young ladies seeking husbands. The afternoon stretches before you, a rare few hours of rest before preparing for the evening's dinner at the Cartwrights and the ball that will follow. You retreat to your bedroom, grateful for the reprieve, and find yourself drawn to the window. The rain has cleared, leaving London washed clean, the afternoon sun glinting off wet cobblestones. Below, in the street, life goes on. Servants running errands, tradespeople making deliveries, a group of children playing some sort of game with sticks and a ball. Your world has narrowed to drawing rooms and ballrooms, to the minutiae of proper behaviour and strategic socialising. It's exhausting, this constant performance, and you're only 2 days into the season. A knock at the door interrupts your thoughts. Mary enters with a package. Just delivered for you, miss. Curious, you open it to find a small, elegantly bound book of poetry, Wordsworth's lyrical ballads. Inside the cover is a simple note in a bold, masculine hand. For those moments when London lacks trees. W. Westmoreland. It has to be. Referencing your comment from yesterday about the city's distinct lack of nature. Your heart does a strange little flip. This is significant. A gift, however small, is a clear indication of interest. But it's also dangerously close to improper. Unmarried ladies aren't supposed to accept gifts from gentlemen who aren't family members or fiancés. Who delivered this? You ask Mary. The Marquess's footman, miss. Very proper about it. Handed it directly to Mr. Jenkins at the door. At least the delivery was above board. Still, if your mother knew... Let's keep this between us for now, you tell Mary, tucking the book into your bedside drawer. She grins, always ready to participate in a small conspiracy. Yes, miss. Shall I tell you if any more mysterious packages arrive? Please do, and Mary, thank you. Left alone again, you lie back on your bed, staring at the ceiling, mind racing. The game is becoming more complicated. The Marquis is showing interest. Real interest, it seems. But why you? There must be dozens of eligible young ladies in London with larger dowries, better connections, more impressive lineages. Perhaps the Countess was right. Perhaps he doesn't want the typical debutante, all simpers and carefully rehearsed accomplishments. Perhaps he wants someone real. The thought is both thrilling and terrifying. Because if there's one thing you've learned about Regency courtship so far, it's that real is rarely part of the equation. As the afternoon light begins to fade, you rise to prepare for the evening ahead. The Cartwrights' dinner, then Lady Sefton's ball. More rules to follow, more impressions to make, more subtle negotiations in the complex business of finding a husband. But now there's a new element in play. A Marquess who sends poetry. A hint that perhaps, just perhaps, there might be more to this season than social climbing and strategic matches. You open the drawer and touch the book's leather cover. A small act of rebellion, accepting this gift. A tiny crack in the rigid facade of propriety that governs your world. Tonight, at the ball, you'll see him again. And suddenly, the prospect of donning your blue silk gown and facing another evening of social navigation doesn't seem quite so tedious. Because amid all the rules and restrictions of Regency courtship, something unexpected is happening. Something real. It takes nearly 2 hours to prepare for the evening's events. 2 hours of Mary pulling your corset strings, arranging your hair, and helping you into your dinner dress. A deep green silk that catches the light when you move. 2 hours to transform from a normal human being into a marriage prospect. "Hold still, miss," Mary mutters, pins clamped between her lips as she secures an ornamental comb in your hair. Almost done. You try not to fidget, but anticipation makes you restless. The Marquess sent you a book of poetry no less. In the complex language of Regency courtship, that's practically a declaration. "There," Mary says, stepping back to admire her work. "You look beautiful." The looking glass shows a version of yourself that seems both familiar and strange. Hair arranged in fashionable curls, cheeks pinched to bring colour, lips bitten for the same reason. The green dress is more daring than your usual attire, cut lower across the chest than your mother typically allows. But she approved it specifically for tonight, evidence of her shifting strategy. With the Marquess potentially in play, more risks are acceptable. Your mother appears in the doorway, already dressed for the evening. "Lovely," she pronounces. "The green brings out your eyes. Now remember, at dinner you'll likely be seated next to Sir William's nephew. He's in Parliament, quite promising. But at the ball, we'll ensure you stand up with the Marquess for at least one dance. No more than 2, of course." "Of course," you echo. Dancing more than twice would be tantamount to announcing an engagement. Another peculiar rule in the Regent's courtship playbook. Caroline joins you, looking elegant if somewhat subdued in pale blue. At 26, she's given up hope of marriage for herself and embraced her role as chaperone and companion. Sometimes you catch her watching younger girls with a mixture of relief and regret. Relief at no longer being on display in the marriage market. Regret for opportunities missed. "Shall we?" your mother says, leading the way downstairs where your father waits by the front door, resplendent in his evening attire. He kisses your forehead as you reach him. "My beautiful girls," he says, including Caroline in his smile. "Try to enjoy yourselves tonight, won't you? It's not all about husband hunting, you know." Your mother makes a small, disbelieving sound. "What else would it be about, Edward?" He winks at you behind her back. Your father understands the pressures you face, though he can't shield you from them. As a second son who unexpectedly inherited when his brother died without issue, he knows how quickly fortunes can change. He wants security for you, but not at the cost of your happiness. The Cartwright's townhouse is ablaze with light when your carriage pulls up, every window glowing in welcome. A footman helps you down, and you join the stream of elegantly dressed guests making their way inside. London's elite out in their finery, a parade of wealth and status on display. Lady Cartwright greets you effusively in the entrance hall, air-kissing your mother and complimenting your dress. She's famous for her matchmaking skills, having successfully married off all 5 of her daughters to men of rank and fortune. The fact that 3 of those marriages are reportedly miserable is conveniently overlooked in society's accounting of her success. "Miss Harrington, you must meet my nephew," she says, beckoning to a young man hovering nearby. "Mr. James Wilson, recently elected to Parliament. Such a clever mind for politics." Mr. Wilson bows. He's handsome enough, you suppose. Tall and fair-haired, with an air of self-importance that suggests he's well aware of his own worth in the marriage market. A promising politician with good connections can afford to aim high. "Miss Harrington," he says, voice pitched to carry just far enough for those nearby to hear his gallantry. "Lady Cartwright mentioned your beauty, but her description falls short of reality." You curtsy, murmuring an appropriate response to this rehearsed compliment. The opening moves of courtship are so standardized they might as well be a quadrille, with everyone knowing the steps in advance. When dinner is announced, Mr. Wilson offers his arm to escort you in. As your mother predicted, you're seated beside him at the long table glittering with silver and crystal. On your other side is an elderly gentleman who immediately turns to speak with the lady beyond him, leaving you at the mercy of Mr. Wilson's conversation for the duration of the meal. "I understand your family's estate is in Derbyshire," he begins predictably. "Yes, near Matlock. Beautiful country. I rode through there last autumn on my way to visit Lord Spencer." The name dropping is deliberate, establishing his social connections. You nod politely, taking a small sip of wine. The Regency dinner table is as much a battleground for social positioning as any other arena. "And do you enjoy London so far?" he continues. "I imagine it's quite a change from country life." "It's certainly more crowded," you reply, "and considerably less green." He laughs, a bit too heartily for the mild jest. "Indeed, though you'll find plenty of diversions to make up for the lack of natural beauty. The theatre, the opera, assemblies and balls." As he speaks, you find yourself thinking of the book hidden in your bedside drawer. For those moments when London lacks trees. The Marquis understood your meaning instantly, responded to it thoughtfully. This conversation, by contrast, feels like trudging through shallow social pleasantries. "Do you enjoy reading, Mr. Wilson?" you ask, wondering if he might surprise you. He looks momentarily thrown by the shift in conversation. "Reading? Oh yes, of course. Political pamphlets primarily. One must stay informed. And the newspapers, naturally. No poetry, no novels." He actually frowns a little. "I find little use for such things. Fiction is primarily the domain of ladies, I think. Pleasant entertainment, but not substantive." You bite back a sharper response. This dismissal of ladies' reading is common enough, but still irritating. Instead, you steer the conversation to safer ground. The latest news from Parliament, a subject on which Mr. Wilson is only too happy to expound at length. By the time the ladies withdraw to leave the gentlemen to their port and politics, you've learned far more than you ever wanted to know about Mr. Wilson's political opinions, and almost nothing about him as a person. He's a type, not an individual. The ambitious young politician on the rise, looking for a suitable wife to advance his career. In the drawing room, the ladies engage in the time-honoured tradition of discussing the gentlemen in their absence. "Mr. Wilson seemed quite taken with you," Lady Cartwright says, materialising at your side. "He's considered quite a catch, you know. His father left him a tidy fortune, and with his political connections, he's sure to rise far." You make a non-committal sound, which she naturally interprets as encouragement. "He's particular about accomplishments in a wife," she continues, "musical ability especially. He mentioned you haven't yet had the opportunity to demonstrate yours. And there it is, the trap. In the Regency marriage market, a young lady's accomplishments are her stock in trade. Playing an instrument, singing, drawing, painting, dancing, speaking modern languages, fine, needlework. These are the skills that supposedly demonstrate your worth as a potential wife. Never mind intelligence or character or compatibility. Can you entertain guests at the pianoforte?" "I play a little," you admit, which is both true and a considerable understatement. Your mother insisted on years of lessons, and you took to the instrument naturally. But you've never enjoyed performing for strangers, having your worth assessed by how prettily you can render a sonata. "Excellent," Lady Cartwright claps her hands. You must play for us when the gentlemen join us. Mr. Wilson particularly enjoys Mozart. You're cornered, and you know it. To refuse would be unforgivably rude. To admit your reluctance would mark you as lacking proper feminine modesty. Yes, the paradox is real. You must be accomplished but humble about it, skilled but reluctant to display those skills. When the gentlemen eventually rejoin the ladies, Lady Cartwright wastes no time. Miss Harrington has agreed to favour us with the performance, she announces, gesturing to the pianoforte in the corner. She plays, I'm told, quite beautifully. All eyes turn to you. Your mother gives you an encouraging nod. Mr. Wilson looks pleased, settling into a chair near the instrument. There's no escape. You move to the pianoforte, arranging your skirts as you sit. The keys are cool beneath your fingers as you take a moment to compose yourself. Then, decision made, you begin to play. Not Mozart as suggested. Instead, you choose Beethoven, his Moonlight Sonata, haunting and melancholy. It's not the typical drawing room piece, not designed to show off technical skill with showy flourishes, but it's music that speaks, that means something. As you play, the room falls silent. The gentle, rolling arpeggios fill the space, creating a moment of genuine emotion amid all the social artifice. You lose yourself a little in the piece, forgetting you're supposed to be showcasing your marriage ability. When the last notes fade, there's a moment of silence before the applause begins. Your mother looks surprised but pleased. Mr. Wilson appears slightly bewildered, as if he's not sure whether to be impressed or confused by your choice. Beautifully played, says a deep voice from the doorway. You look up, startled. The Marquis of Westmoreland stands there, evidently a late arrival to the dinner. His dark eyes meet yours across the room, and you feel that same strange flutter in your chest. Thank you, my lord, you reply, voice steadier than you feel. Lady Cartwright hurries over to greet him, delighted by this unexpected addition to her party. Lord Westmoreland, what a pleasant surprise. We had not expected you until the ball, he bows to her. My apologies for missing dinner. Another engagement ran late, but I'm glad I arrived in time to hear Miss Harrington play. She has a remarkable sensitivity for Beethoven. The fact that he recognized the piece, that he commented on your interpretation rather than merely complimenting your skill, warms you in a way Mr. Wilson's generic praise never could. Mr. Wilson, sensing competition, quickly joins the conversation. Indeed, Miss Harrington plays charmingly, though I confess I'm more partial to Mozart myself. Perhaps something lighter for your next piece. You're saved from having to respond by Lady Cartwright announcing it's time to depart for Lady Sefton's ball. There's a general movement as everyone gathers wraps and gloves. Footmen are dispatched to bring carriages around, and the party begins to disperse. In the controlled chaos, the Marquis somehow ends up beside you in the hallway, slightly apart from the others. Did you receive my small offering? He asks quietly. You nod, equally discreet. It was most thoughtful. Thank you. Have you read Wordsworth before? Yes, though I prefer his earlier works. The more recent poems seem to have lost some of their initial fire. His eyebrows rise slightly, surprised perhaps that you have an actual opinion rather than polite appreciation. An interesting observation. I'd be curious to hear more of your thoughts on the matter. Before you can respond, your mother appears at your side. Ah, Lord Westmoreland, how lovely to see you again. Will you be attending Lady Sefton's ball as well? The moment of genuine connection breaks. You're back to the social dance, the careful navigation of propriety. Indeed, Lady Harrington, I look forward to seeing you all there, he replies smoothly. The journey to Lady Sefton's is short, your family's carriage joining the line of vehicles depositing elegantly dressed guests at one of the ton's most anticipated balls of the early season. Inside, the house is transformed, chandeliers blazing with hundreds of candles, flowers banked against the walls, a small orchestra tuning up in the ballroom. The receiving line moves slowly as each guest properly greets Lady Sefton. By the time you enter the ballroom itself, the space is already crowded, a swirl of colourful gowns and black evening dress. Remember, your mother murmurs, don't accept more than 2 dances with any gentleman, and try to secure the supper dance with someone suitable. That's particularly significant. You nod, having heard these instructions a dozen times. The supper dance is indeed special. It means sitting with your partner during the midnight meal, a chance for extended conversation. Accepting the supper dance from a gentleman signals serious interest. Your dance card, the small booklet where you record your promised dances, fills quickly. Mr. Wilson secures the first, a country dance that has you moving up and down the line, changing partners periodically. He performs the steps competently, if not gracefully, and makes sure to compliment you during the brief moments you're together. You dance as beautifully as you play, Miss Harrington, he says. Thank you, sir. You're too kind. It's all so scripted, so proper, so empty of real connection. The second dance, you stand up with Sir James Merriweather, talks enthusiastically about his curricle and his plans to drive in Hyde Park the next day, weather permitting. The third is with a friend of your father's, an older gentleman who knew you as a child and treats you with avuncular affection. And then, as the orchestra begins the fourth set, the Marquis appears before you, bowing formally. Miss Harrington, may I have the honour of this dance? Your heart quickens. The honour is mine, my lord. It's a waltz, still somewhat scandalous despite having been approved at Olmec several years ago. The dance requires actual physical contact, the gentleman's hand at the lady's waist, the lady's hand on his shoulder, gloved, of course, but still closer than any other socially sanctioned touch between unmarried men and women. The Marquis leads you to the floor, taking his position as the music begins. His hand is firm at your waist, guiding you into the first turn. He dances well, with the confident grace of someone who doesn't need to count steps or worry about where his feet should go. You caused quite a stir with your choice of music earlier, he says, as you moved together through the waltz pattern. Did I? I merely played what I felt like playing. Exactly. Most young ladies would have chosen something designed to showcase technical skill. You chose emotion over display. You look up at him, surprised by his perception. Perhaps I'm not very good at the marriage market game, my lord. He laughs softly. Or perhaps you're playing a different game entirely. The waltz continues, the two of you moving in perfect synchronicity. Around you, other couples twirl and turn, but you're barely aware of them. For these few minutes, the crowded ballroom narrows to just this. His hand at your waist, your hand on his shoulder, the space between you charged with something unspoken. I've been meaning to ask, he says after a moment, what did you think of Wordsworth's Tintern Abbey? It's included in the collection I sent. I found it moving, you reply honestly. The idea that nature stays with us, even in memory, even in crowded cities, it resonated. Yes, exactly. His eyes brighten with genuine interest. That's precisely why I thought of you when I saw the book. Your comment about London's lack of trees, it reminded me of that poem. The fact that he thought of you at all makes your pulse quicken. that he connected you to a poem about finding nature's peace even in urban chaos. It suggests he sees something in you beyond the surface. You surprise me, Lord Westmoreland, you admit. I wouldn't have expected a Marquis to care much for romantic poetry, because aristocrats are supposed to be concerned only with hunting, gambling, and acquiring suitable wives. There's humour in his voice, but something else too, a challenge. Isn't that the common wisdom? I've never had much patience for common wisdom, Miss Harrington. The waltz ends and he steps back, bowing. Thank you for the dance and for the conversation. Both were refreshing. You curtsy in return. The pleasure was mine, my lord. As he escorts you back to your mother's side, you're aware of eyes following you. The Marquis is a prize catch, and your dance with him has been noted. The gossip mill of the Tun is already at work. Your mother looks triumphant as you rejoin her. Well done, she whispers. You looked very well together. Did he request another dance? No, you admit. Not yet, anyway. No matter. The fact that he chose you at all is significant. She scans the room like a general surveying a battlefield. There's Mr. Wilson, looking decidedly put out. Perhaps you should show him some attention for the next set. We don't want to appear too fixated on one prospect. The next hour passes in a blur of dances, introductions, carefully modulated smiles and limited refreshments. A lady never appears too hungry in public, another bizarre rule. You stand up with Mr. Wilson again, and with Edward Brighton, the clergyman from this morning's calls, who steps on your toes twice and apologises profusely each time. Throughout it all, you're aware of the Marquis moving through the ballroom, dancing with various young ladies, conversing with their parents, playing the game just as you are. But occasionally your eyes meet across the room, and something passes between you. A shared recognition, perhaps, of the absurdity of it all. As the supper dance approaches, the all-important set that determines your dining partner for the midnight meal, you find yourself suddenly cornered by Mr. Wilson. Miss Harrington, he says with a confidence that suggests he expects no refusal, may I request the honour of the supper dance? Before you can respond, another voice cuts in smoothly. I believe Miss Harrington already promised that dance to me. The Marquis of Westmoreland stands there, a slight smile playing about his lips. It's a lie, of course. You made no such promise. But it's a lie you're more than happy to support. Indeed, my lord, you say, grateful for the rescue. I did. Mr. Wilson's face falls slightly, but he recovers quickly. Another time, perhaps, he says, bowing and retreating. When he's out of earshot, you turn to the Marquis. Thank you for the timely intervention, though I don't recall promising you the supper dance. A gentleman's memory is selective when it suits him, he replies with a wink. But now that I've claimed it, would you do me the honour of making my falsehood true? May I have the supper dance, Miss Harrington? The flutter returns to your chest, stronger now. You may, my lord. He writes his name in your dance card, his hand briefly brushing yours, a tiny transgression, thrilling in its impropriety. Until then, he says, and walks away, leaving you both anticipatory and confused. What game is he playing? He could have his pick of any eligible young lady in London. Why show such marked interest in you? You don't have long to ponder these questions. The orchestra strikes up again, and you're claimed for another country dance, then another. The night whirls on, a kaleidoscope of faces and music and carefully deployed accomplishments. Young ladies take turns at the pianoforte, displaying their musical talents. Others showcase their singing voices, their graceful dancing, their charming French accents. The marriage market in full swing, with each participant highlighting their most saleable qualities. And through it all, You wait for the supper dance, for the midnight meal, for the chance to understand what the Marquis sees when he looks at you. The Regency courtship game continues, with rules as rigid as ever. But somewhere beneath the social choreography, something unexpected is growing. Something that has nothing to do with titles or fortunes or suitable matches. Something real and therefore dangerous. When the orchestra strikes up the supper dance, your pulse quickens. The Marquis appears at your side, right on cue, offering his arm with a slight bow. Miss Harrington, Lord Westmoreland. Such formal address between two people about to spend the next half hour in close conversation. The rules of Regency courtship are nothing if not contradictory, allowing proximity while maintaining the illusion of distance. The supper dance is a cotillion, less intimate than the waltz, but more complex, with intricate patterns that require concentration. As you move through the figures, the Marquis proves himself an excellent dancer, guiding you with subtle pressure of his hand, anticipating each turn. You dance well, he observes during a moment when you're paired together. As do you, my lord, though I suspect you've had considerably more practice, he laughs. Are you calling me old, Miss Harrington? Experienced, you correct, feeling bold. There's a difference. The dance separates you before he can respond, sending you down the line to partner briefly with other gentlemen. When you return to him, he's still smiling. Experienced, he repeats. I like that better than old, certainly. The pattern shifts again, bringing back to back, then face to face. The dance floor is crowded, bodies moving in synchronized patterns, the heat of so many people in one room making the air thick despite the spring chill outside. I must confess, he says when you're together again, I've been looking forward to this dance all evening. Because you enjoy cotillion so much, you tease, deflecting the compliment. Because I enjoy your company, he counters. You're refreshingly direct. Most young ladies I meet these days seem to have memorized the same conversation. Weather, music, a carefully rehearsed French phrase. Tedious. Perhaps they're simply nervous, you suggest. Meeting a Marquis can be intimidating. Are you intimidated? The question catches you off guard. Are you? There's something about him that makes your heart race, certainly, but it's not his title or his fortune. No, you answer honestly. Should I be? The dance ends before he can reply. The couple's applauding the orchestra as the music fades. Without releasing your hand, he leads you toward the supper room where tables have been laid with an impressive midnight feast. Cold meats, oysters, fruits, jellies, and champagne flowing freely. Your mother catches your eye from across the room, giving you an approving nod. She's seated with Lady Jersey, one of Almac's feared patronesses, probably angling for vouchers to that exclusive assembly. Her campaign for your advantageous marriage continues on all fronts. The Marquis secures a small table somewhat removed from the main crush, a prime position that offers a degree of privacy while remaining properly visible. Another demonstration of his social status. Lesser mortals make do with crowded tables in poor locations. You never answered my question, you remind him, as a footman serves champagne. Which question was that? Though his tone suggests he remembers perfectly well. Whether I should be intimidated by you. He considers this, dark eyes studying your face. No, I don't think you should. But many would say a healthy degree of caution is warranted when dealing with a man in my position. Because you're a Marquis. Because I'm a widower with a young daughter, considerable estates, and according to the gossips, in desperate need of a new Marchioness. His tone is light, but there's an edge to it. I've become a prize to be won, it seems. The number of ambitious mamas throwing their daughters in my path this season has been impressive. You can't help but laugh. Including mine, I'm afraid. Your candour is remarkable. Is it? I thought it was obvious. You're exactly the sort of match my mother has been dreaming of. Titled, wealthy, already proven capable of producing children. I sound like a particularly promising stallion, he remarks dryly. Isn't that how the marriage market works? We're all assessed for our breeding potential and social advantages, like prized horses at Tattersalls. He chokes slightly on his champagne, eyes crinkling with genuine amusement. Not the comparison most young ladies would draw, but accurate enough. Around you, the supper room buzzes with conversation and laughter. Couples lean close together, seizing this rare opportunity for conversation without a parent or chaperone hovering directly beside them. Across the room, you spot Caroline watching you with curious interest. Mr. Wilson glowers from another table, clearly displeased at having lost the supper dance to a competitor. So tell me, the Marquis says, if you find the marriage market so distasteful, what would you prefer? To choose your own husband based solely on personal preference? Is that so radical? To want some say in who I'll spend my life with? For many, yes. Marriage has always been about alliance, about property and inheritance. Love is a modern luxury, says the man who can choose any wife he pleases. His expression softens. You think I have freedom of choice? In some ways, perhaps. But my position comes with its own constraints. The future Marchioness of Westmoreland can't simply be any woman I happen to admire. She'll be mistress of 5 estates, stepmother to my daughter, eventually Duchess of Harrington. Society has expectations. There's something in his voice, a note of frustration perhaps, that makes you wonder if he's speaking from experience. Had there been someone he couldn't choose because of those expectations? And what about your expectations, my lord? What do you look for in a potential marchioness? He studies you for a moment, as if deciding how honest to be. Intelligence, he says finally. Compassion. Strength of character. Someone who can hold her own in any company. Someone real. The word echoes your earlier thoughts. Real. Not a perfectly trained debutante performing her accomplishments on command, but a person. Someone who might challenge him, surprise him. And what of love, you ask, the champagne perhaps making you bolder than you should be? Does that factor into your calculations at all? A shadow crosses his face. I loved my wife deeply. Her loss. He pauses, composing himself. I don't expect to find that kind of love twice in one lifetime, but mutual respect, companionship, friendship, those matter greatly. You feel a pang of something, not quite jealousy, but a strange sadness for a woman you never met who was so loved by this man. I'm sorry, you say quietly, about your wife. It must have been terrible to lose her. He looks surprised, as if he didn't expect genuine sympathy. Thank you. It was, is, Eleanor was... He stops again, clearly uncomfortable discussing such personal matters in this setting. But that's hardly appropriate conversation for a ball supper. The moment of real connection passes, social convention reasserting itself. He smoothly changes the subject to safer ground. Whether you're enjoying London, which events you plan to attend, if you've yet visited the British Museum. For the rest of the supper, you converse pleasantly on neutral topics. He's well informed and articulate, with a dry wit that makes even discussions of weather interesting. You find yourself laughing often, aware of curious glances from nearby tables. Being singled out by the Marquis has made you an object of interest and speculation. I think we're causing a stir, you observe, nodding discreetly toward a group of ladies openly watching your table. He follows your gaze and grimaces slightly. The Tun's favourite pastime, gossiping about potential matches. By tomorrow, I expect we'll be engaged according to half of London. Only half? You underestimate the speed of gossip. I'd give it until breakfast. This earns another genuine laugh. You may be right. The rumour mill is particularly efficient when it comes to my supposed matrimonial intentions. He leans forward slightly. Does it bother you, being the subject of such talk? You consider the question seriously. I don't know. I've never been in this position before. I imagine it depends on what they're saying. That the mysterious country Miss Harrington has somehow captured the interest of London's most eligible widower. I'd call that flattering rather than scandalous. Mysterious? Is that how I'm seen? He shrugs. You made your debut late. You play Beethoven instead of fashionable Italian compositions. You speak your mind when most young ladies are content to agree with whatever opinion is expressed. Yes, I'd say you've cultivated an air of mystery, intentionally or not. You're not sure how to respond to this assessment. You've never thought of yourself as mysterious, just slightly out of step with what society expects. Supper concludes, and the Marquis escorts you back to the ballroom where the orchestra is reassembling for the next set of dances. Your mother materializes at your side, her timing impeccable as always. Lord Westmoreland, you must allow me to steal my daughter away for a moment, she says with practiced charm. Lady Sefton was just asking after her. It's a transparent excuse, but the Marquis accepts it graciously. Of course, Lady Harrington. Miss Harrington, thank you for the pleasure of your company at supper. I hope we might continue our conversation another time. I would like that, you reply, perhaps too earnestly. He bows and moves away, immediately surrounded by other guests eager for his attention. The most eligible man in the room is never left alone for long. Your mother steers you toward the refreshment table, her grip on your arm betraying her excitement. Well, she demands in a whisper, what did he say? He seemed thoroughly engaged in your conversation. We discussed music, the weather, the British Museum, you say, deliberately vague. The real substance of your conversation feels too private to share. She looks disappointed. Nothing more? Significant? No hint of his intentions? Mother, I've known him for all of 2 days. He has no intentions beyond polite conversation. She purses her lips, unconvinced. Men in his position don't waste time on polite conversation, unless they're interested. He could have requested the supper dance with any young lady here. He chose you. That means something. Before you can argue further, you're approached by Sir James Merryweather, eager to secure you for the next dance. Your mother smiles encouragingly. He may not be a marquis, but a baronet with a substantial fortune is still a worthy prospect. The rest of the ball passes in a whirl of dances and conversations. You stand up with various partners, including Mr. Wilson, still sulking about losing the supper dance, Edward Brighton, still stepping on your toes, and even an elderly duke who claims he knew your grandmother in her heyday. Throughout it all, you're aware of the Marquis moving through the room, dancing occasionally but mostly conversing with older gentlemen. Politics, probably, or estate management. The serious business conducted at social events under the guise of pleasure. He doesn't approach you again, and you try not to feel disappointed. One supper dance doesn't constitute a courtship after all, and a man of his standing has many demands on his attention. It's nearly 3 in the morning when your father finally decides it's time to depart. You're exhausted, feet aching from hours of dancing, head slightly fuzzy from champagne and too little sleep. But as your family moves toward the exit, a footman appears with a folded note. "For Miss Harrington," he says discreetly, pressing it into your hand. You slip it into your reticule without reading it, heart pounding. Your mother is distracted, saying farewell to Lady Sefton, and doesn't notice the exchange. Only in the privacy of the carriage, hidden in the shadows as you roll through London's dark streets, do you dare to unfold the paper. The message is brief, the handwriting now familiar. Hyde Park, the fashionable hour. Look for me near the Serpentine. W. Your chest tightens with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. This is a clear invitation. Not proper, not formal, but undeniable. The fashionable hour in Hyde Park is public enough to be respectable, private enough for conversation without constant interruption. "What's that?" Caroline asks, noticing the paper in your hand. You fold it quickly. "Nothing. Just a note about a book I mentioned to Lady Cartwright." She looks sceptical but doesn't press the issue. Your sister has her own secrets, you suspect. At 26, having declined 2 respectable offers, she's carved out a peculiar independence for herself within the constraints of spinsterhood. Your mother is too busy reviewing the evening's triumphs to notice anything amiss. Lady Jersey was most cordial. I think vouchers for Almack's are all but assured. And the way Lord Westmoreland singled you out, everyone noticed. Lady Pembroke looked positively green with envy. The same Lady Pembroke who snubbed her yesterday, now put in her place. Your mother's satisfaction is almost comical. Back at the townhouse, Mary helps you undress, exclaiming over the state of your dancing slippers, worn through at the soles after hours of use. "Looks like you had a good time," she observes, helping you into your nightgown. "It was interesting," you admit, thinking of the Marquis, his honesty about his wife, his unexpected invitation. "And?" Mary prompts. "Any promising gentleman? Your mother's been talking about a Marquis to anyone who'll listen." You can't help but smile. Maybe it's too soon to tell. But as you settle into bed, exhaustion pulling you towards sleep, you find yourself replaying the conversations of the evening. The way the Marquis looked at you when he spoke of wanting someone real. The shadow that crossed his face when he mentioned his late wife. The unexpected note inviting you to meet him. Something is happening. Something beyond the usual mechanics of the marriage market. Something that doesn't fit neatly into the rigid rules of Regency courtship. And as you drift off to sleep, the Marquess's note tucked safely beneath your pillow, you wonder if perhaps the real danger isn't scandal or impropriety, but the possibility of genuine feeling in a world designed to suppress it. The next morning dawns bright and clear, perfect weather for the fashionable hour in Hyde Park. You wake early despite your late night, anticipation making sleep impossible. Hyde Park in the afternoon is the see-and-be-seen event of Regency London, a daily parade of wealth and status. Between 5 and 7 in the evening, anyone of consequence either rides on horseback or drives in their finest carriages along the designated routes, particularly Rotten Row, showing off their finery, their beautiful horses, their fashionable companions. It's essentially an outdoor version of a ball, with the same rules and expectations but with added complications of weather and horsemanship. Another stage for the ongoing performance of courtship and social climbing. The question, as you stare at your wardrobe with Mary's assistance, is how to convince your mother to include Hyde Park in today's schedule without revealing your true motivation, and what to wear for such an encounter. A morning dress won't do for the fashionable hour, but full evening attire would be excessive for daylight. You settle on a walking dress of pale blue muslin, with a matching Spencer jacket and a bonnet trimmed with ribbons that complement the ensemble. Fashionable but not ostentatious, pretty but practical. When you join your mother at breakfast, she's already deep in correspondence, writing notes to cement new social connections made at last night's ball. "Good morning, dear," she says without looking up. "I'm just writing to Lady Jersey. She's invited us to a small musical evening next week. The Marquis is expected to attend." Of course he is. Eligible aristocrats are always in demand for social events. "I was thinking," you begin casually, buttering a piece of toast, "it's such a lovely day. Perhaps we might drive in Hyde Park this afternoon. I've heard the fashionable hour is quite the spectacle." Your mother looks up, a calculating gleam in her eye. "Hyde Park? Yes, I suppose we should make an appearance. Your father mentioned Sir James Merryweather is known to drive his curricle there daily, and several other gentlemen who expressed interest in you last night will likely be present." She doesn't mention the Marquis, which means either she doesn't know he frequents the park or she's being uncharacteristically subtle. Either way, you've achieved your objective without having to reveal the note. "Shall we take the barouche?" you ask, referring to the family's open carriage. "Certainly. Your father can't join us. He has business at his club, but Caroline will accompany us as usual." The morning and early afternoon crawl by at an excruciating pace. You attend church, make obligatory Sunday calls on neighbours, review the invitations that have arrived, and try not to watch the clock too obviously. Finally, at 4:30, the barouche is brought around, and you set off for Hyde Park with your mother and Caroline. The streets are crowded with other carriages heading in the same direction, all of London's elite drawn to this daily ritual of social display. Your mother has dressed with particular care. A new bonnet, her best carriage dress, an expensive shawl draped artfully around her shoulders. This is her element, the public arena where connections are made, gossip exchanged, and matrimonial campaigns advanced. As the carriage enters the park, you're struck by the spectacle. Hundreds of people promenading on foot, elegant ladies on horseback, gentlemen showing off their fine horsemanship, carriages of every description from modest gigs to elaborate barouches with liveried footmen. Your eyes scan the crowd, searching for a familiar figure. "The Serpentine," he'd said. "Look for me near the Serpentine." "There's Lady Worthington," your mother says, directing the coachman to slow down as she waves to an acquaintance in a passing carriage. "And the Brightons walking just there. Edward Brighton is looking your way, dear. Smile." You obediently smile and wave to the young clergyman, who blushes visibly at being noticed. Poor Edward. So earnest, so easily flustered. The barouche continues its stately progress through the park, your mother pointing out notable figures and exchanging greetings. You recognize many faces from last night's ball, the same social set simply transposed to a different venue, and then you see him, the Marquis of Westmoreland, mounted on a magnificent black stallion, waiting near the edge of the Serpentine just as he promised. Your heart performs a traitorous little leap at the sight of him. He spots your carriage and raises his hand in greeting, nudging his horse forward to intercept you. "Lady Harrington, Miss Harrington, Miss Caroline," he says, bowing slightly from the saddle. What a pleasant surprise. The lie is smooth, his expression revealing nothing of your prearranged meeting. He's playing the game perfectly. "Lord Westmoreland," your mother gushes, "how fortunate to encounter you. We were just admiring the park. Such a lovely day for a drive." Indeed it is. Perfect weather. He turns his attention to you. Miss Harrington, do you ride? Yes, though I haven't had the opportunity since arriving in London. A shame. The park is best appreciated on horseback, I think. Perhaps one day you might join me for a morning ride, with your mother's permission and proper accompaniment, of course. The invitation is both proper and improper, offering a chance for less supervised conversation while maintaining the appearance of respectability. Morning rides in the park are acceptable for unmarried ladies, provided they have a groom or companion with them. Your mother practically vibrates with excitement. What a delightful idea! Caroline is an excellent horsewoman as well. She would be happy to accompany you, wouldn't you, dear? Caroline, looking amused at being volunteered, nods her agreement. Certainly, I haven't ridden in an age. Excellent, the Marquis says. Shall we say tomorrow at 10? I can arrange for suitable mounts to be brought to your home. And just like that, it's settled. A legitimate reason to spend time in his company, with Caroline as chaperone rather than your more vigilant mother. As the carriage moves on, and the Marquis tips his hat in farewell, your mother can barely contain her glee. A riding invitation, that's significant, you know, quite personal, and arranging horses for you, that shows real interest. You murmur agreement, but your mind is on tomorrow morning. The note, the deliberately orchestrated chance meeting, the riding invitation. The Marquis is pursuing you with clear intent, navigating the rigid rules of Regency courtship with the skill of someone who knows exactly how far those rules can bend before breaking. The question is, what does he truly want? A suitable wife for his position? A stepmother for his daughter? Or something else entirely? As the barouche continues its circuit of the park, you watch the social pageant unfold around you. The Regency courtship dance in all its complex glory, with its subtle signals and coded behaviours. A world where a book of poetry can be more intimate than a kiss, where a morning ride can be both innocent and laden with meaning. A world you're only beginning to understand. Morning comes with pale spring sunshine streaming through your curtains and the distant sounds of London already stirring. You've barely slept, anticipation making rest impossible. Today you'll ride with the Marquess, a proper outing with Caroline as chaperone, but still the closest thing to privacy you're likely to get. Mary bustles in earlier than usual, already aware of the day's plans. Your mother's been up since dawn, miss. Ordered your riding habit brushed and pressed twice. She's in quite a state. You can imagine. The possibility of securing a Marquis as a son-in-law has your mother practically vibrating with excitement. She's also instructed cook to prepare refreshments for when you return, in case his lordship accompanies you back to the house, Mary continues, laying out your riding clothes. And had the drawing room rearranged. Twice. You groan, burying your face in your pillow. She's going to frighten him away with her eagerness. I doubt that, miss. Men like his lordship are used to mothers, throwing their daughters at them. Besides, she adds with a sly smile, he seems particularly interested in you, not your mother's arrangements. The riding habit Mary helps you into is the finest you own. Dark blue, superfine wool with military-inspired braiding across the bodice. The jacket fits snugly, nipped at the waist, with a matching skirt cut fuller and longer than normal to accommodate riding side saddle. A jaunty hat with a small veil completes the ensemble. You study your reflection in the looking glass. The blue brings out your eyes, and the tailored lines of the habit emphasize your figure to advantage. It's amazing how clothing designed for a practical purpose, riding, can still be fashioned to display a lady's form so effectively. You look beautiful, miss, Mary says, adjusting your hat one last time. Very elegant. Downstairs, your mother is indeed in a frenzy of preparation, directing servants, rearranging flowers, and fussing over every detail as if the Prince Regent himself were coming to call. "Ah, there you are," she exclaims when she sees you. "Excellent. The habit fits perfectly. Remember to sit straight in the saddle. Nothing is less appealing than poor posture on horseback. And don't gallop. It's unladylike. A gentle canter at most." You accept a light breakfast, too nervous to eat much. Caroline joins you, dressed in her own riding habit of deep green. She looks amused at the commotion. "I believe this is the most excitement our morning ride has caused since I was caught conversing with Lord Pembroke's son without a chaperone in '08, she says dryly. "Mother nearly had an apoplexy." "What happened with Lord Pembroke's son?" you ask, curious. Caroline rarely speaks of her own experiences during her season. She shrugs, a shadow crossing her face. "Nothing of consequence. He was required to marry his cousin the following month, a match arranged in infancy. We were merely talking about books." There's more to that story, you suspect. But before you can inquire further, a commotion at the front door announces the arrival of horses. Your mother hustles you both outside where the Marquis waits, mounted on the same magnificent black stallion from yesterday. Beside him, a groom leads 2 fine mares, one chestnut, one dapple grey, clearly high-quality animals from his own stables. "Lady Harrington, Miss Caroline," he greets you, dismounting smoothly. "I trust the mounts I've brought meet with your approval. The chestnut is Penelope, gentle but spirited. The grey is Athena, a bit more sedate but very reliable." Caroline moves to the grey mare, stroking her nose with the confidence of an experienced horsewoman. "She's lovely. Thank you for arranging this, Lord Westmoreland." You approach the chestnut, who eyes you with intelligent interest. "Hello, Penelope," you murmur, letting her sniff your hand before gently patting her neck. She's usually reserved with strangers, the Marquess observes, watching the interaction. She must sense a kindred spirit. The double meaning isn't lost on you. Gentle but spirited. Is that how he sees you as well? A mounting block is brought, and the Marquess himself assists you onto Penelope's back, his hands at your waist as he lifts you into the side saddle. Even through layers of clothing, the contact sends a jolt through you. He lingers a moment longer than strictly necessary, eyes meeting yours before he steps back. "Shall we?" he asks, remounting his stallion. The park is beautiful this time of morning before the crowds descend. Your mother waves you off with a stream of last-minute instructions. Be back by noon. Don't overtire yourself. Remember all she's taught you about proper conversation. You're relieved when you're finally moving away, the horses' hooves clattering on the cobblestones. The ride to Hyde Park is brief, the 3 of you proceeding at a sedate pace through London's morning traffic. Caroline positions herself slightly behind you, and the Marquess, close enough to serve as chaperone, far enough to allow some semblance of private conversation. She's being surprisingly accommodating given her usual vigilance. "Your sister is remarkably tactful," the Marquis observes, as if reading your thoughts. "She has her moments," you agree. "Though I'm surprised Mother allowed her to be our only chaperone. It's unusually trusting," he laughs. "I suspect she's calculated the risk and decided a Marquis is worth bending the rules for. Besides, we're in public, heading to a public park. Hardly a situation ripe for scandal." "True. Though if the Countess is to be believed, just conversing with you is enough to set tongues wagging." "Ah, you've met Lady Wexford. A formidable woman. She was my mother's closest friend." This surprises you. "She didn't mention that when she was discussing your Eligibility? He winces slightly. Did she subject you to that? My apologies. The Countess has decided views on suitable matches for every one of her acquaintance. She means well. She seemed to think your first wife was spirited, you venture, curious about the woman who had captured his heart so completely. A shadow crosses his face, but he doesn't close off as he did at the ball. Eleanor was unconventional, brilliant, opinionated, with little patience for society's strictures. I imagine that's what Lady Wexford meant by spirited. She sounds remarkable. She was. He's quiet for a moment, then adds, You remind me of her in some ways. Not in appearance. Eleanor was fair while you're dark, but in spirit. That same unwillingness to simply play the expected role. You're not sure how to respond to this. Being compared to his beloved dead wife is both flattering and unsettling. Before you can formulate a reply, you arrive at Hyde Park's gates, and the conversation naturally shifts. The park is peaceful at this hour, with only a few other riders and the occasional early morning walker. Dew still clings to the grass, sparkling in the strengthening sunlight. The serpentine gleams like polished silver, a pair of swans gliding serenely across its surface. It's beautiful, you say, drinking in the rare expanse of nature amid London's urban sprawl. Almost as good as Derbyshire, he asks with a smile. A poor substitute for real countryside, but I'll take what I can get. You ride at a gentle pace along the bridle paths, the Marquess pointing out landmarks and sharing anecdotes about the park's history. Caroline drops back even further, allowing you more privacy while still maintaining propriety. After a while, when you're comfortably established in a rhythm, the Marquess turns the conversation to more personal matters. Tell me about your home, he says. Not the polite version you share at dinner parties, but the real Derbyshire. What do you miss about it? The question catches you off guard. Not the usual society small talk. You find yourself answering honestly. The hills, the vastness of the sky, the silence, real silence, not just the absence of carriages and street vendors, but profound quiet where you can hear the wind in the grass, the freedom to walk for hours without seeing another soul. He nods, understanding in his eyes. I feel the same about my country estate in Northumberland. London has its attractions, but it's never truly home. Is that where your daughter is now, Northumberland? Yes, with her nurse and my sister as companion. Margaret, my sister, practically raised her this past year while He hesitates. While I was less than present. There's pain there, and perhaps guilt. You can read between the lines. A grieving widower, perhaps not as attentive to his child as he now wishes he had been. What's she like, your daughter? His face softens, pride evident. Elizabeth is 5, precocious, stubborn, and entirely too clever for her own good. She has her mother's eyes, and, I fear, my temper. She sounds wonderful. She is, and terrifying. I never thought I could love someone so fiercely. He pauses. I plan to bring her to London soon. Margaret thinks it's time she had more society than just the household staff and village children. The fact that he's sharing these details about his daughter feels significant, more intimate somehow than the flirtation of dance floors and supper tables. This is his real life, not the social performance of the season. The conversation flows easily after that, covering books you've both read, places you've visited, childhood memories. He tells you about growing up as the heir to a dukedom, the weight of expectations, his rebellion at Oxford. You share stories of your own upbringing, the freedom of your countryside childhood, your father's progressive ideas about education for daughters, your mother's increasingly desperate attempts to turn you into a proper lady. It's the longest, most honest conversation you've had with anyone outside your family in years. No calculated responses, no careful management of impressions, just two people talking. At one point, he guides his horse closer to yours, reaching out to adjust your reins slightly. You're letting her drift left, he explains, his hand brushing yours in the process. The contact, brief as it is, sends that now familiar jolt through you. His eyes meet yours, and for a moment everything else fades. The park, the horses, even Caroline in the background. There's just this connection, this understanding passing between you. Then a group of riders appears around the bend, shattering the moment. The Marquis straightens, putting proper distance between your horses as decorum requires. But something has shifted, something important acknowledged. As you turn back toward home, the conversation becomes more general again, with Caroline rejoining you. But there are glances, small smiles, a new awareness humming between you and the Marquis. At your townhouse, he accepts your mother's eagerly offered refreshments, spending another hour in the drawing room making polite conversation. He's charming with your mother, respectful with your father, easy with Caroline, a perfect gentleman caller, observing all proprieties. Yet his eyes find yours often across the room, carrying private meaning that makes your heart race. When he finally takes his leave, he bows over your hand. I've greatly enjoyed our ride, Miss Harrington. Perhaps we might correspond about those books we discussed. I have several volumes I think might interest you. And there it is, the next significant step in Regency courtship, a request to correspond, to exchange letters. So much more meaningful than it might sound to modern ears. In an era when unmarried men and women were never left alone, when physical contact was limited to the briefest touch of gloved hands, letters were the one place where genuine feelings could be expressed, the one private space in an otherwise public courtship. Your mother, hovering nearby, practically glows with triumph. How lovely! My daughter is quite the literary enthusiast, my lord. So I've gathered, he replies with a smile. Her insights on Wordsworth were most illuminating. After he's gone, your mother wastes no time. A request to correspond, after just one proper outing. This is progressing even faster than I'd hoped. She bustles off to write notes to her closest friends, eager to share this development. Your father watches her go with fond exasperation. Are you pleased with this attention from Lord Westmoreland? He asks when you're alone. Unlike your mother, he seems genuinely interested in your feelings. I think so, you admit. He's not what I expected. A Marquis with a personality beyond his title. Revolutionary, he teases. Then more seriously, be careful, my dear. The stakes in this game are high, especially with a man of his standing. I know, father. But do you really? The Regency courtship dance is fraught with pitfalls for the unwary. One misstep can ruin a reputation. One hasty action can lead to consequences impossible to undo. And there's something else weighing on you. The ghost of Eleanor, the first Marchioness. A woman so loved that her husband still carries her memory like a physical presence. How does one compete with a perfect memory? What if you're just a pale substitute, a necessary replacement for a man who needs a mother for his child and a mistress for his estates? The next morning brings a package delivered by the Marquess's footman. Inside is not one but 3 books, a volume of Byron's poetry, a novel by Maria Edgeworth, and a slim collection of sonnets, and with them, a letter. You take the package to your room before opening the folded paper, heart pounding. This is it, the beginning of real correspondence. the most intimate form of communication allowed between unmarried persons in the Regency era. His handwriting is bold and clear, the same decisive script from the Wordsworth note. Miss Harrington. I find myself thinking of our conversation in the park long after we parted. It is rare to discover someone with whom conversation flows so naturally. Rarer still to find genuine insight rather than rehearsed opinions. The Byron is from my own library. You'll find some passages marked that particularly struck me. The Edgeworth, I thought, might amuse you as we discussed the foibles of the marriage market. The sonnets are perhaps indulgent, but certain lines reminded me of your observations about London's distinct lack of trees. I would be most interested in your thoughts on any or all of these volumes should you find time to peruse them. Until our next meeting, Westmoreland. Formal in address, but increasingly personal in content. Not quite a love letter, but certainly more than a casual note between acquaintances. The fact that he sent books from his personal library rather than newly purchased volumes adds another layer of meaning. These are books he's read, perhaps treasured. Sharing them is sharing something of himself. And passages marked? In the Regency era, this was an established way of communicating feelings that couldn't be explicitly stated. The recipient would find the marked passages and read them as personal messages from the sender. Your hands tremble slightly as you open the Byron, finding the first marked passage. She walks in beauty, like the night, of cloudless climes and starry skies, and all that's best of dark and bright. Meet in her aspect and her eyes. Your breath catches. This can't be casual. Marking such a famous love poem and sending it to you. It's a clear declaration of admiration, perhaps even something deeper. You flip through, finding other passages similarly romantic in nature. The Edgeworth novel has fewer markings, mostly humorous observations about social climbing and marriage-minded mamas that make you smile. But the slim volume of sonnets has the most extensive markings of all. Line after line about nature's beauty, about finding peace in wild places, about the stifling constraints of society compared to the freedom of hillsides and forests. He's understood perfectly what you miss about home, what you find lacking in London despite all its glamour. The intimacy of it, of someone selecting words that speak directly to your heart, your experiences, is overwhelming. This is what makes correspondence such a significant step in courtship. Letters allow a kind of emotional honesty impossible in the public arenas of balls and dinner parties. You sit at your writing desk, preparing to compose a reply. This is delicate ground. Too formal would suggest disinterest. Too warm might seem forward. And anything you write will be read not just by the Marquess, but potentially by future generations if the courtship progresses to marriage. Letters are kept, saved, sometimes even published posthumously. The pressure is immense. Each word must be chosen carefully, each sentiment balanced between propriety and genuine feeling. But as you dip your pen in ink, you find yourself thinking not of rules or consequences, but of the man himself. The way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, the gentleness with which he spoke of his daughter, the understanding that passed between you in those unguarded moments on horseback, and suddenly the words come easily. Lord Westmoreland. Your generous literary gifts arrived safely and have provided most welcome companionship on a rainy London morning. I confess I turned first to Byron, curious about your marked passages. I find your selections reveal as much about the reader as the poet, a man of deeper sensibility than drawing-room conversation might suggest. The Edgeworth made me laugh aloud at its all-too-accurate portrayal of certain marriage-minded mamas, none of whom bear any resemblance to my own dear mother naturally. And the sonnets, those spoke most directly to my heart, particularly lines about stone forests where no birds sing. How perfectly that captures my impression of London. I wonder, my lord, if all avid readers find themselves in the pages of others' words, or if this tendency to see one's own thoughts reflected in poetry is a peculiar affliction of those who feel somewhat out of step with the world around them. With sincere appreciation for the literary respite from London's endless social engagements, your name. You read it over, wondering if it's too revealing, too personal. But no, this is the purpose of correspondence, to move beyond the superficial, to establish a deeper connection. If the Marquis is sincere in his interest, he'll welcome your honesty. If not, better to know now before your heart becomes more deeply engaged. You seal the letter, arranging for it to be delivered to his London residence. And then the waiting begins, the exquisite anticipation that is both torture and delight. This is the rhythm of Regency courtship. Public performances at balls and dinner parties, the rare semi-private conversations during rides or walks, and the secret world of letters where true feelings might finally find expression. A dance of approach and retreat, of revelation and restraint. A game with the highest possible stakes, your future, your happiness, perhaps even your heart. And you're only just learning the rules. The response comes faster than you expected, the very next day. Another package delivered discreetly by his lordship's footman, containing a single book and another letter. The book is a rare edition of Austen's Sense and Sensibility, published anonymously by a lady just the previous year. It's clear he's chosen it with care, a novel about two sisters navigating the treacherous waters of courtship and marriage. You take it to your window seat, the only place in the house where you can reliably find a moment's privacy. The letter is longer this time, his handwriting somehow more relaxed, as if he's grown comfortable corresponding with you. Miss Harrington. Your letter was a breath of fresh air in an otherwise tedious day of estate business. You ask if all readers find themselves in others' words, a thoughtful question I've pondered myself. I believe the best writers speak universal truths that resonate across experiences, yet each reader finds their own unique reflection, like looking at the same moon from different windows, perhaps. I've sent Austen's novel, which I suspect you've already read but might enjoy revisiting. Her sharp observations about our society's marriage market seem particularly relevant to our conversations. Marianne's romantic sensibilities versus Eleanor's practical sense. I wonder which sister you find yourself sympathising with more. My daughter Elizabeth arrives in London tomorrow. She's been asking about the lady with the pretty horse ever since I mentioned our ride. At 5, her understanding of adult relationships is limited to fairy tales, but she's surprisingly perceptive in her assessments of character. I find myself curious about how she might respond to you. This brings me to a request. My sister Margaret is hosting a small gathering at our London home this Saturday. Nothing formal, merely afternoon tea with a few close acquaintances. Elizabeth will be there, and I would be honoured if you and your family would join us. It would give you a chance to meet the other half of my small family in a setting less structured than the usual society functions. I await your response, both to this invitation and to your thoughts on Marianne versus Eleanor. Yours, Westmoreland. Your heart beats faster at the signature. Yours, not sincerely or respectfully or any of the standard closings, but the possessive yours. In the coded language of Regency correspondence, this is significant, a clear indication of deepening feelings. and the invitation itself, to his home to meet his daughter and sister. This goes beyond the casual social interactions of balls and park outings. This is entry into his private world, his family circle. In Regency courtship terms, it's tantamount to a declaration of serious intent. Your mother will be ecstatic, your father cautious but pleased, and you press the letter to your chest, emotions swirling, excitement, yes, but also anxiety. The stakes are rising. This is no longer just an interesting flirtation with a handsome marquess. This is rapidly becoming something that could determine the entire course of your life. And there's his question about Austen's heroines. Marianne with her passionate romanticism versus Eleanor with her practical sense. It's not just literary discussion, it's him trying to understand your character, your values, how you might approach love and marriage. You spend the morning composing your reply, weighing each word carefully. Lord Westmoreland. You've intuited correctly that I am already acquainted with Miss Austen's novel, but revisiting it through fresh eyes is always a pleasure. As for your question about the Dashwood sisters, I confess I find myself split between them. I admire Eleanor's composure and sense, yet understand Marianne's longing for something beyond mere comfort and security. Perhaps the ideal lies somewhere between, practical enough to navigate life's challenges, passionate enough to make that life worth living. I would be delighted to accept your invitation for Saturday, and I'm certain my parents and sister will join me gladly. The opportunity to meet your daughter and sister is most welcome. I must admit to some curiosity about Elizabeth. Children's perceptions are often unclouded by the social pretenses we adults maintain. What fairy tales are her favourites? At her age, I was particularly drawn to stories where the heroines embarked on adventures rather than waiting to be rescued, much to my mother's dismay. Until Saturday, your name. You deliberate over the signature, finally settling on your name alone. Not quite as bold as his yours, but more personal than a formal closing. A small step, but in the dance of Regency courtship, every step matters. When you tell your mother about the invitation, her reaction is everything you anticipated. First disbelief, then jubilation, then immediate panic about what everyone should wear. Tea at the Marquess's London residence, with his family. This is beyond anything I hoped for so early in your acquaintance, she exclaims, already mentally calculating the significance. And to meet his daughter. Oh my dear, do you understand what this means? You do, all too well. The Regency courtship process is accelerating at an alarming rate. What began as a chance meeting at Lady Worthington's has rapidly evolved into something approaching a formal understanding. We must have new gowns made, your mother decides. There's just enough time if the seamstress starts immediately, something elegant but not ostentatious. We don't want to appear too eager, though of course we are. And your hair. Perhaps we should try a different style and... Mother, you interrupt gently. It's afternoon tea, not a presentation at court. I think my blue day dress will be perfectly adequate. She looks scandalized. Adequate. My dear, nothing about this situation calls for adequate. This is the Marquess of Westmoreland, heir to the Duke of Harrington. His family seat dates back to William the Conqueror. Your father, entering in time to hear this exchange, chuckles. The Marquis is interested in our daughter, my dear, not her gown, though I'm sure you'll ensure she looks lovely as always. Of course, but appearances matter. First impressions with his family could determine everything, and to meet his daughter, that's particularly significant. Men in his position are extremely careful about introducing potential stepmothers to their children. She's right about that, at least. In the Regency world, where divorce is nearly impossible and death in childbirth common, second marriages are frequent among the aristocracy. But the introduction of a new maternal figure to existing children is handled with utmost care. For the Marquis to invite you to meet Elizabeth so early in your acquaintance suggests he's already considering you in that role. The thought is both flattering and terrifying. You've barely begun to envision him as a potential husband, let alone yourself as a mother to his child. Yet this is the reality of courtship in your era. Decisions made quickly, futures determined after mere weeks of acquaintance, often based on practical considerations rather than deep emotional connections. The days until Saturday pass in a flurry of preparation. Your mother does indeed commission new gowns, though there's only time for alterations to existing dresses rather than completely new creations. Your father has a long private conversation with you in his study, reminding you that despite the Marquis's title and fortune, your happiness is what matters most to him. Caroline offers wry observations about the family's excitement, but seems genuinely pleased for you. And through it all, the correspondence with the Marquis continues. Brief notes rather than lengthy letters, accompanying small gifts, a volume of poetry, a pressed flower, a delicate silk bookmark. Each interaction building a private understanding between you, a connection beyond the public performance of courtship. Saturday dawns bright and clear. The Harrington townhouse, when your carriage pulls up outside, is an imposing structure in the most fashionable part of Mayfair. 5 stories of elegant Georgian architecture with gleaming windows and immaculate white stone steps. Liveried footmen stand at attention, and you glimpse a well-tended garden behind wrought-iron gates. This, you realise with a flutter of nerves, could be your future home. The thought is disorienting. Your mother fusses over your appearance one last time as you ascend the steps. "Remember everything I've taught you," she whispers. "Be charming but reserved. Show interest in the child without being over-familiar, and mind your posture." The butler who admits you has the dignified bearing of someone who has served the family for decades. He leads you through an entrance hall adorned with ancestral portraits and into a drawing room that manages to be both grand and surprisingly comfortable. The Marquis rises as you enter, but it's the woman beside him who captures your attention first. Tall, fair-haired, with the same dark eyes as her brother. This must be Lady Margaret. And beside her, a small figure with bouncing dark curls and a decidedly critical expression, Elizabeth. Lady Harrington, Sir Edward, Miss Harrington, Miss Caroline. The Marquis greets your family with warm formality. "May I present my sister, Lady Margaret Westmoreland, and my daughter, Lady Elizabeth." Lady Margaret curtsies with elegant grace. "How delightful to meet you all. My brother has spoken quite highly of you, Miss Harrington." Elizabeth, clearly less impressed with social niceties, studies you with unnerving directness. "Are you the lady who rode Penelope?" she demands without preamble. You can't help but smile at her forthrightness. "I am. She's a beautiful horse." "She doesn't like most people," Elizabeth informs you seriously. "She bit Lady Pembroke when she tried to feed her an apple." "Elizabeth," Lady Margaret admonishes, though there's a hint of amusement in her voice. "We don't speak of such things in company." "But it's true," the child insists, "and Papa said Miss Harrington should know what she's like." The Marquis clears his throat, looking slightly embarrassed. "I believe I said Miss Harrington should know what you're like, not Lady Pembroke. My apologies for my daughter's bluntness. She hasn't quite mastered the art of social filtering. I find it refreshing, you reply honestly. Much better than the polite fictions adults typically exchange. Elizabeth's expression brightens at finding an ally. Do you like fairy stories? I've got a new book of them. Aunt Margaret says I should show you. I'd love to see it, you tell her, and she darts off immediately to retrieve the volume, propriety forgotten in her enthusiasm. The adults exchange amused glances, and the initial tension eases. You're seated near Lady Margaret, who proves to be charming and astute, with the same dry wit as her brother. Your parents engage the Marquis in conversation about his estates, country pursuits, and mutual acquaintances. Elizabeth returns with her book, climbing without hesitation onto the sofa beside you. This one's my favourite, she says, opening to an illustration of a princess confronting a dragon. She rescues the prince, see? Not like the silly stories where princesses just wait around. You feel the Marquess, watching you, gauging your reaction to his daughter's unconventional tastes. I prefer those kinds of stories too, you confide to Elizabeth. Heroes come in all forms, don't they? The child nods approvingly. That's what Papa says. He says Mama was a hero when she had me, even though she couldn't stay. The room goes momentarily still. This innocent reference to her mother's death in childbirth clearly wasn't expected, and Lady Margaret looks like she might intervene. But before she can, the Marquis moves to sit beside his daughter. That's right, Lizzie, he says gently. Your mother was very brave, and she loved you very much. She would have stayed if she could. The simple, honest acknowledgement of loss strikes you deeply. No platitudes, no awkward avoidance of the subject, just truth, delivered with love and an assumption that Elizabeth can handle it. The child nods, seemingly satisfied, then turns back to you. Do you know how to make daisy chains? Aunt Margaret does, but she's not very good at it. Her fingers are too big. Lady Margaret laughs. Such flattery. But yes, my clumsy attempts are rather pitiful compared to her nursemaid's expert creations. I used to make them all the time at home, you tell Elizabeth. Perhaps we could go into the garden later and try. The girl's face lights up. Yes. Papa, may we go to the garden with Miss Harrington after tea? If Miss Harrington is agreeable, and if you remember your manners for the rest of the visit, he replies with fond sternness. Tea is served, an elegant affair with delicate sandwiches, small cakes, and the finest china. The conversation flows easily, with none of the strained politeness that characterises most society gatherings. Lady Margaret asks thoughtful questions about your interests and education, seeming genuinely curious rather than merely polite. My brother tells me you're quite the literary enthusiast, she says as she pours another cup. Have you read Mrs. Radcliffe's latest? The Italian? Yes, though I confess I preferred Udolpho. The mysterious veiled picture made a greater impression than anything in the newer work. Exactly my thought, though I found the resolution rather disappointing. All that suspense for such a mundane explanation. You're surprised to find yourself genuinely enjoying Lady Margaret's company. She's intelligent and well-read, with opinions of her own rather than merely echoing popular sentiment. The easy rapport between her and her brother speaks of a close relationship built on mutual respect. After tea, true to his word, the Marquis allows Elizabeth to lead you into the garden to make daisy chains. Your mother looks momentarily alarmed at this separation from the main group, but Lady Margaret smoothly suggests a tour of the ground floor for the rest of the party, giving you a discreet wink as she leads them away. The garden is a surprisingly extensive space for a London townhouse, with carefully tended flower beds, gravel paths, and a small fountain at its centre. Elizabeth chatters happily as she gathers daisies, telling you about her pony at the country estate, her lessons with her governess, and her cat who had kittens last month. You sit together on a bench in the sunshine, showing her how to pierce the stems with your thumbnail to create perfect links in the chain. Her small fingers are clumsy but determined, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Papa says you live in the country usually," she says after a while. "Do you like London better?" "I like different things about each place," you tell her. "London has theatres and museums and interesting people to meet. But the country has more space, more quiet, more freedom." She nods sagely. "I like the country better too. Papa says we'll go back to Westmoreland Hall soon. Would you come visit us there?" The innocent question catches you off guard. Well, that would depend on your father's invitation and my parents' permission." "I'll ask him," she decides with the confidence of a child accustomed to getting her way. "He likes you. He smiles more when you're here." Before you can formulate a response to this startling observation, footsteps on the gravel path announce the Marquess's approach. He looks at the daisy chains in progress and smiles. "I see you've found a more skilled instructor than your poor aunt," he says to Elizabeth, who beams proudly as she holds up her somewhat lopsided creation. "Miss Harrington says she'll come visit us at Westmoreland Hall," the child announces. You feel your cheeks warm. "I said any visit would depend on your invitation and my parents' permission," you clarify hastily. The Marquess looks amused rather than discomfited by his daughter's presumption. "Well, as it happens, I've just been discussing summer plans with your parents. My sister is hosting a house party at Westmoreland Hall next month, and your family's been kind enough to accept our invitation. This is news to you, and significant news at that. A country house party is an entirely different level of intimacy than London society events. Extended time together in a less formal setting, away from the constant scrutiny of the ton. It's during such gatherings that many courtships advance to formal engagements. Your mother has been busy indeed." Elizabeth claps her hands in delight. "I can show you my pony, and the treehouse, and the secret passage behind the library." "Secret passage," you echo, intrigued despite yourself. The Marquess laughs. "More of a servant's corridor, but it does have a hidden door in the panelling. Elizabeth discovered it last summer and has been using it to dramatic effect ever since, jumping out to startle unsuspecting visitors. Only the boring ones," Elizabeth clarifies, "not the ones who tell good stories." "I shall endeavour to tell excellent stories then to avoid being startled," you promise her solemnly. The child grins, clearly pleased with this response, and returns to her daisy chain. The Marquess takes a seat on the bench beside you, maintaining a proper distance but close enough for private conversation. "I hope you don't mind that I spoke to your parents about the house party before mentioning it to you," he says in a lower voice. "I wanted to be certain they were amenable before raising the possibility." "It's quite all right," you assure him, "though I'm surprised my mother didn't immediately rush out here to tell me herself. I may have suggested Lady Margaret show them the portrait gallery first. It's on the opposite side of the house, and contains several paintings of particular historical interest that require lengthy explanation." You laugh at this transparent manipulation. "How very considerate of you. I thought we might benefit from a few moments of relatively private conversation," he admits. "Our correspondence has been meaningful to me, but there are things better said in person than in writing." Your pulse quickens. Is this it? Is he about to declare himself formally? To request permission to court you officially? But Elizabeth chooses that moment to insert herself between you, proudly displaying her completed daisy chain. "Look, I finished it. Will you wear it, Miss Harrington?" The moment breaks, and the Marquis sighs with a mixture of frustration and fondness as his daughter crowns you with flowers. Whatever he intended to say remains unspoken as your parents and Lady Margaret rejoin you in the garden. The visit concludes with warm farewells and confirmation of plans for the house party in June. Lady Margaret embraces you like an old friend, promising to write with details about the planned activities. Elizabeth extracts a promise that you'll help her make more daisy chains at Westmoreland Hall, and the Marquis kisses your hand in parting, his dark eyes conveying unspoken meaning. "Until our next meeting," he says softly, "which I hope will be soon." In the carriage ride home, your mother can barely contain her excitement. Lady Margaret is delightful, so accomplished, so well connected, and the child seems to have taken quite a liking to you. That's extremely promising. But most importantly, did you notice who arrived just as we were leaving? You hadn't, too absorbed in your own thoughts and the lingering warmth of the Marquess's hand on yours. The Duke of Harrington himself. He made a point of being introduced to your father and me, though there wasn't time for more than brief pleasantries. But the fact that he came at all, clearly to inspect you, my dear, this is beyond my wildest hopes. Your father tempers her enthusiasm slightly. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves, my dear. It was a pleasant afternoon, nothing more. Though I must admit the Marquis seems a decent sort. More substance to him than most of these titled gentlemen." Caroline, who has been uncharacteristically quiet, adds her own observation. "His sister is surprisingly genuine. I expected someone more calculating, but she seems to truly care about the child's happiness and her brother's. The real test will be the house party," your mother declares. "A full fortnight at Westmoreland Hall with all his family and closest friends. If he doesn't make an offer by the end of it, I'll be greatly surprised." The mention of an offer sends a flutter of nerves through your stomach. It's all moving so quickly. Just weeks ago, you were in Derbyshire, with no thought of marriage beyond your mother's vague plans for a London season. Now you're being measured for the role of marchioness, of stepmother, of mistress to ancestral estates. And the most confusing part? Despite the dizzying speed, despite the weight of expectation and tradition, you find yourself wanting it. Not just the title or security, but him, the Marquis himself, with his love of poetry, his devotion to his daughter, his ability to see you, really see you, beyond the careful performance of a debutante. That night, alone in your room, you find a small package tucked into your reticule, slipped there somehow during the afternoon's visit. Inside is a single daisy, pressed between two pieces of paper and a note in familiar handwriting. "For when London lacks flowers as well as trees. W." You press it to your heart, this simple token meaning more than any expensive gift could. In the elaborate dance of Regency courtship, with its rigid rules and practical considerations, you've somehow found something genuine, something real. But as you drift towards sleep, a nagging worry surfaces. The house party looms ahead, 2 weeks in the country, surrounded by his family and friends. The Duke of Harrington himself will be assessing your suitability as a future Duchess. Lady Margaret's warm welcome might cool in the face of her family's expectations, and Elizabeth, while charming, is still a child adjusting to the possibility of a new maternal figure. The stakes are rising. The Regency courtship game is entering its most crucial phase, and you're only just beginning to understand how much of your heart is already involved. The weeks leading up to the Westmoreland Hall house party pass in a flurry of preparations. Your mother orders an entirely new wardrobe for the occasion, Morning dresses, walking outfits, riding habits, evening gowns, and all the accompanying accessories. A future marchioness must be properly attired, she insists, despite your father's raised eyebrows at the mounting expense. Meanwhile, your correspondence with the Marquis continues, growing more personal with each exchange. He sends books with increasingly romantic passages marked. You respond with your true thoughts rather than the bland pleasantries expected of young ladies. He shares stories of his daughter's latest escapades. You confide your anxieties about fitting into his world. It's a courtship conducted primarily on paper, in defiance of the usual Regency pattern of public performances at social events. There's an intimacy to it that feels almost scandalous, knowing each other's minds before your families have even begun the formal negotiations that typically precede a proposal. One rainy afternoon, as you're writing your latest letter, Caroline enters your bedroom without knocking. You instinctively move to cover the page, then feel foolish for doing so. Your sister has been your closest confidant for years, but somehow these letters feel too private to share, even with her. "Another missive to your Marquess?" she asks, settling herself on the window seat. There's something in her tone, not judgment exactly, but caution. "He's hardly my Marquess," you protest. The words send a secret thrill through you. No, the entire ton has all but announced your engagement. Lady Jersey asked me yesterday when we could expect the formal announcement. You set down your pen with a sigh. Everyone is getting rather ahead of themselves, don't you think? We've had a few conversations, exchanged some letters. That's hardly grounds for marriage. Caroline studies you thoughtfully. In our world it often is, especially when the gentleman in question is heir to a dukedom. But that's not what concerns me. What does then? She hesitates, choosing her words carefully. I worry that you're falling in love with a man you barely know. The observation hits uncomfortably close to the mark. You are falling for the Marquess, or at least for the version of him revealed in his letters. The thoughtful, literary man who sees beyond your social performance to the person beneath. But is that the real man, or merely another kind of performance? I'm being cautious, you assure her, not entirely truthfully. Are you? She glances at the stack of books on your bedside table, all gifts from him. Because this correspondence goes well beyond what's considered proper, even for a courtship as seemingly advanced as yours. She's right, of course. Unmarried ladies aren't supposed to engage in such personal, frequent exchanges with gentlemen. A few formal letters, carefully chaperoned meetings, perhaps a token gift or two. That's the extent of what's permitted before an official engagement. What you and the Marquis are doing skirts the edges of respectability. I know what I'm doing, you say, with more confidence than you feel. Caroline sighs. I hope so, because the stakes are so much higher for you than for him. If this courtship fails, he'll face a few weeks of gossip before moving on to the next eligible young lady. You'll be marked as the girl who almost caught a Marquis but couldn't seal the matter. Every future prospect will wonder why he withdrew. It's a sobering thought, and not one you've allowed yourself to dwell on. The Regency courtship game is inherently unequal. Men can walk away relatively unscathed from an unsuccessful courtship. Women often can't. You sound like you're speaking from experience, you observe quietly. A shadow crosses her face. Perhaps I am. For the first time you wonder if there's more to Caroline's spinsterhood than mere choice. Had there been someone years ago whose courtship ended badly? Is that why she's never accepted any of the respectable offers that came her way? Before you can ask, your mother bursts into the room waving a letter. Wonderful news! Lady Margaret has written with details of the house party. The Duke and Duchess will be in residence the entire fortnight, along with the Earl and Countess of Pembroke, Lord and Lady Cartwright, and several other distinguished guests. Her eyes gleam with social ambition. This is even better than I hoped. Half the aristocracy will witness your triumph. Mother, please, you protest. Nothing is decided yet. She waves away your caution. A mere formality at this point. Lady Margaret has requested your measurements for riding. Apparently the Marquis is arranging for a special mount to be available for your exclusive use during the visit. If that's not a declaration of intent, I don't know what is. After she sweeps out to share the news with your father, Caroline gives you a pointed look. Like I said, the Ton has decided your future. I just hope it's what you truly want. Her words stay with you as the day of departure approaches. Is this what you want? Marriage to a man you've come to know primarily through letters and brief chaperoned encounters? A lifetime as the Marchioness of Westmoreland, eventually Duchess of Harrington, stepmother to Elizabeth, mistress of vast estates? It sounds like a fairy tale, but fairy tales rarely mention the sacrifices required of their heroines. 2 days before you're set to leave for Westmoreland Hall, an unexpected visitor arrives at the townhouse, Lady Wexford, the elderly countess who first mentioned the Marquis to you. She appears without warning, imperiously informing the butler that she won't be turned away despite the early hour. Your mother receives her in the drawing room, baffled by this unprecedented call from such a prestigious figure. You're summoned down immediately. "Ah, there you are, girl," Lady Wexford says as you enter. "Sit down, we need to talk." You obey, exchanging a confused glance with your mother, who looks equally perplexed. "I'll be direct," the Countess continues, once tea has been served and the servants dismissed. "You're about to spend a fortnight at Westmoreland Hall, where I have it on good authority that the Marquis intends to propose. Your cheeks burn. Is there no privacy in this world? Has every detail of your courtship been dissected by the Ton?" "That's a matter between Lord Westmoreland and my daughter," your mother begins. But Lady Wexford cuts her off with a wave of her bejewelled hand. "Spare me the pretense. We all know why girls are paraded around London every season. The only question is whether they're prepared for what comes after. The wedding." She fixes you with her sharp gaze. "Are you, Miss Harrington?" "I believe so, my lady," she snorts. "You have no idea. None of you young girls do. You think it's all about the wedding, the title, the grand house. But that's just the beginning." She leans forward. "Let me tell you what being a marchioness, and eventually a duchess, really entails. You won't just be a wife and mother. You'll be the administrator of multiple estates, responsible for the welfare of hundreds of tenant families. You'll be expected to manage a small army of servants, entertain royalty, navigate political affiliations, and uphold centuries of family tradition." Your mother looks like she might faint with joy at this recitation of aristocratic duties. You, however, feel a knot of anxiety forming in your stomach. "Eleanor, the First Lady Westmoreland, struggled with these responsibilities," Lady Wexford continues. "Brilliant girl, but not raised for such a position. It caused tensions in the marriage." This revelation startles you. The Marquis has spoken of his late wife with nothing but reverence. The idea that their marriage might have been troubled in any way contradicts everything he's led you to believe. "What sort of tensions?" you ask, unable to help yourself. The Countess gives you an approving look, as if you've passed some sort of test by asking directly. "She was a scholar's daughter, educated, opinionated, used to intellectual freedom. The constraints of her position chafed, and the Duke, Westmoreland's father, is a traditionalist who expected his son's wife to conform to his notion of what a future duchess should be. Did the Marquis not support his wife? The question feels almost treasonous, but you need to know. He tried, Lady Wexford says after a moment, but he was caught between loyalty to his wife and duty to his family. It's not an easy position. She studies you intently. You'll face the same challenges, girl. The Duke will have very specific expectations of his son's second wife. Are you prepared to meet them, even if they conflict with your own inclinations, or with what the Marquis has led you to believe married life with him will be like? The blunt question leaves you speechless. You've been so caught up in the romance of the courtship, the fairy tale of catching a Marquess's eye, that you've given little thought to the practical realities of the marriage that might follow. The constraints, the expectations, the potential conflicts between duty and personal happiness. I don't know, you admit finally. Lady Wexford nods, seemingly satisfied with this honest answer. Good. Acknowledging what you don't know is the beginning of wisdom. She rises with the aid of her cane. I've said my piece. What you do with it is your own affair. After she leaves, your mother is practically apoplectic. The nerve of that woman, coming here with such improper warnings, filling your head with doubts right before the house party. What could she possibly have been thinking? That she was doing me a kindness, you reply quietly, by telling me things no one else would. Kindness, your mother scoffs. She was being meddlesome. Pay her no mind, dear. Old women love to cast shadows on young people's happiness. But you can't dismiss Lady Wexford's warning so easily. That night you reread the Marquess's letters, searching for hints of the tension she described. There's nothing explicit, of course, but you notice now what you missed before, how rarely he mentions his father, how he sometimes alludes to family obligations with a certain weariness. Had you been so dazzled by the prospect of a fairy tale romance that you missed the warning signs? Or is Lady Wexford simply a bitter old woman trying to sabotage someone else's happiness? The following morning brings another letter from the Marquis, this one containing practical details about your journey to Westmoreland Hall. But at the end, there's a postscript that catches your attention. P.S. I've just learned that my father has invited the Pembrokes to join our house party, including their daughter, Lady Sophia.
Stay with us, General.
I should warn you that she and I were once briefly linked in the gossip columns, though there was never any truth to it. Unfortunately, Lady Sophia sometimes behaves as if there was. Please don't let her theatrics disturb you. My affections are entirely elsewhere. The warning should reassure you, but instead it adds to your growing sense of unease. Another complication, another aspect of his life you know nothing about. How many other brief links exist in his past? How many other women might appear at this house party with expectations or grudges? For the first time, you find yourself questioning whether you're truly prepared for what awaits at Westmoreland Hall. That evening, unable to settle your thoughts, you seek out Caroline in her room. She's reading by the fire, looking up with surprise when you enter. Couldn't sleep? She asks, marking her place in the book. Too much on my mind. You settle into the chair opposite hers. Caroline, may I ask you something personal? She raises an eyebrow. You may ask. I may choose not to answer. Fair enough. You gather your courage. Was there someone before? Someone whose courtship ended badly? The question hangs in the air between you. For a moment you think she won't answer. Then she sighs, setting aside her book entirely. Yes, she says simply. Lord Pembroke's son, Robert. The revelation stuns you. The same Pembrokes who will be at Westmoreland Hall? The ones connected to Lady Sophia? She nods, a wry smile twisting her lips. The very same. Robert is Lady Sophia's brother. We met during my first season. He was different from the other young men, less concerned with appearances, more interested in ideas. We connected over books, politics, art. What happened? What always happens? His family intervened. Her voice takes on a bitter edge. I was merely the daughter of a baron. They had their sights set on an earl's daughter, someone who could advance the family's position. Robert lacked the courage to defy them. You're stunned by this revelation. All these years, you'd assumed Caroline had chosen spinsterhood, had rejected her suitors rather than the other way around. To learn that she'd had her heart broken, that she'd faced the very outcome Lady Wexford warned might befall you if the Marquis withdrew. I'm so sorry, you say inadequately. I had no idea, she shrugs. Few do. I've kept it private. But now you understand why I caution you about becoming too emotionally invested too quickly. These aristocratic families have agendas that go beyond romantic attraction. The Westmorelands have been intermarrying with the same few families for generations to consolidate power and property. They might tolerate an occasional outsider like us, especially if she brings a healthy dowry, but only if she fits their mould. And if she doesn't, then she faces a lifetime of trying to reshape herself to their expectations, or a lifetime of conflict. She leans forward, taking your hand. I don't tell you this to frighten you away from the Marquis. He seems genuine in his regard for you. But go to this house party with your eyes open. Observe how he interacts with his father, how he navigates family expectations. That will tell you far more about your future happiness than all his pretty letters and poetry books. You squeeze her hand, grateful for her candour. Will it be difficult for you? Seeing Robert again? A shadow crosses her face. Perhaps, but I've had 7 years to build my armour, and there's a certain satisfaction in showing him what he gave up. She smiles faintly. Besides, I'll be too busy watching out for you to wallow in old heartbreak. The conversation gives you a new appreciation for your sister. All these years, you've seen her as the family spinster, the cautionary tale of opportunities missed. Now you recognize her as someone who faced disappointment with dignity, who built a meaningful life despite society's limited options for unmarried women. And perhaps you admit to yourself, someone whose hard-won wisdom you'd be foolish to ignore. The journey to Westmoreland Hall takes 2 days, with an overnight stop at a posting inn. Your father has spared no expense, hiring the best postchaise and team available, ensuring your comfort on the long road north. Your mother alternates between excitement about the grand house party ahead and anxiety that your travelling clothes will be hopelessly wrinkled upon arrival. First impressions matter, dear, she frets, adjusting your bonnet for the 100th time as you prepare to depart from the inn on the second morning. The Marquess has seen me in a rain-soaked riding habit with my hair plastered to my face, you remind her, thinking of that first morning ride. I think we're well past first impressions, she clucks her tongue. His family isn't. The Duke of Harrington will be assessing every aspect of your appearance, deportment, and conversation. One misstep could change everything. Her constant reminders of what's at stake only increase your nervousness. By the time the postchaise turns onto the long tree-lined drive leading to Westmoreland Hall, your stomach is in knots. And then you see it. A magnificent Palladian mansion of golden stone, set among sweeping lawns and formal gardens, with wooded parkland stretching beyond. It's larger than you expected, grander, more intimidating in its aristocratic splendour. This isn't just a country house, it's the ancestral seat of one of England's oldest families, a physical manifestation of the power and privilege the Marquis was born to. As the carriage approaches the grand entrance, you spot a small welcoming committee gathered on the steps. The Marquis is there, tall and handsome in riding clothes, little Elizabeth bouncing excitedly beside him. Lady Margaret stands with them, along with an old couple who must be the Duke and Duchess of Harrington. Your mother grips your hand tightly. Remember everything we've practiced. This is the moment that could determine your entire future. The carriage stops. Footmen rush to open the door and let down the steps, and as you emerge, blinking in the bright sunlight, you're acutely aware that every eye is on you, especially those of the stern-faced Duke, who looks at you with the evaluating gaze of a man assessing a horse at auction. The Marquis steps forward, his smile warm, his eyes lighting up at the sight of you. "Welcome to Westmoreland Hall, Miss Harrington," he says, bowing over your hand. "We've been eagerly awaiting your arrival." Elizabeth darts past him, protocol forgotten in her excitement. "You're here! I've got so much to show you. The treehouse and the maze and the secret passage and—" "Elizabeth," the Duke interrupts, his tone brooking no argument. "Ladies do not shout, nor do they speak until introduced." The child subsides immediately, her exuberance dimmed. You feel a pang at the transformation. This spirited girl suddenly reduced to silent obedience by her grandfather's disapproval. The Marquis's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly, but his voice remains pleasant as he performs the introductions. "May I present my father and mother, the Duke and Duchess of Harrington?" You curtsy deeply as your mother has drilled into you. "Your Grace, your Grace. Thank you for your kind invitation to Westmoreland Hall." The Duchess, an elegant woman with silver-streaked dark hair, offers a gracious smile. "We're delighted to have you, Miss Harrington. I trust your journey wasn't too taxing." "Not at all, Your Grace. The countryside was beautiful." The Duke merely inclines his head in acknowledgement, his expression giving nothing away. But you feel his assessment continuing, measuring you against some internal standard you can't begin to guess. As your parents and Caroline are similarly introduced, you catch the Marquis watching you, a question in his eyes. "Are you all right?" his gaze seems to ask. You give him a small nod, summoning a smile despite your nerves. "Come, let's get you settled," Lady Margaret says warmly, taking your arm as if you're already family. "You must be exhausted from your journey. Tea will be served in the blue drawing room once you've had a chance to refresh yourselves." As she leads your family into the grand entrance hall, with its soaring ceiling and ancestral portraits, you glance back to see the Duke speaking quietly but intensely to his son. The Marquis's expression has hardened, his posture stiff with what looks like barely contained frustration. The first hint of conflict, perhaps, between father and son. The first glimpse of the tensions Lady Wexford warned about. And as the massive oak doors close behind you, sealing you into this world of aristocratic privilege and expectation, you can't help but wonder if you've crossed a threshold from which there's no easy return. The Regency courtship game has brought you to Westmoreland Hall, but the game is about to become far more complex than stolen glances across ballrooms or secret letters hidden in reticules. Here, in the heart of the Marquis's world, you'll discover whether the connection you've built can withstand the weight of family expectations, old scandals, and the ruthless social politics of the Tun's inner circle. For some couples in the Regency era, courtship rules were merely guidelines to be creatively interpreted. For others, they were ironclad laws whose violation led to ruin. The question now is, which will it be for you and the Marquess? And are you prepared to face the consequences, whatever they may be? Your first full day at Westmoreland Hall begins with a gentle knock at your bedroom door. Your maid, borrowed from the household staff for the duration of your stay, enters with a breakfast tray and news that most of the party is planning a riding excursion after morning tea. Lady Margaret suggested you might wish to rest after your journey, miss, she explains, drawing back the heavy curtains to reveal a perfect summer morning. But the Marquess asked me to inquire if you'd like to join the riders. Of course he did. Despite the formidable presence of his father, the Marquess seems determined to spend time with you, within the bounds of propriety, naturally. Please tell Lady Margaret I'd be delighted to join the riding party, you reply, suddenly eager to escape the oppressive grandeur of the house for the freedom of the countryside. The maid curtsies. Very good, miss. Your riding habit has already been pressed, and the Marquess mentioned something about a special mount being prepared for you. After a light breakfast, you dress in your riding habit and make your way downstairs, where the house party is gathering in the grand entrance hall. The mix of guests is exactly as your mother predicted. The cream of society carefully selected to witness your presumed triumph. The Earl and Countess of Pembroke with their son Robert, Caroline's former suitor you now realise, several other titled families, a sprinkling of wealthy gentry, and of course, Lady Sophia Pembroke. She's easy to spot, a striking blonde in an impeccably tailored riding habit of deep burgundy, positioned strategically near the Marquess. As you descend the stairs, you see her laugh at something he's said, her gloved hand resting briefly on his arm in a gesture that speaks of long familiarity. Your mother, already downstairs and watching the scene with barely concealed anxiety, hurries to your side. There you are. I was beginning to worry you'd missed the excursion entirely. The Marquess has been asking after you. Before you can respond, Lady Margaret approaches, elegant in a forest green riding ensemble. Miss Harrington, wonderful. You've decided to join us. I've told my brother that you're an accomplished horsewoman. I hope that's not an exaggeration. I ride regularly at home, though I wouldn't claim any special skill, you reply honestly. Perfect. William has selected a mount he thinks will suit you. Gentle enough for safety, but spirited enough for enjoyment. Rather like the lady herself, I suspect. Her eyes twinkle with mischief, and you can't help but smile at her easy warmth. Lady Sophia chooses this moment to join your circle, her beauty even more striking up close. Miss Harrington, she says, her voice honey-sweet. How delightful to meet you at last. William has spoken of little else since your arrival in London. The use of the Marquess's Christian name, a privilege reserved for family and the closest of friends, is deliberate, you're certain. A subtle reminder of her long-standing connection to him. Lady Sophia, you acknowledge with a polite curtsy. What a pleasure. Lord Westmoreland mentioned you might be joining the party. A flicker of something, surprise, annoyance, crosses her perfect features. Did he? How considerate of him to prepare you, though I assure you no preparation is necessary. William and I are old friends, practically family really. Before the conversation can turn more pointed, the Marquess himself appears at your side. Miss Harrington, I hope you're ready for a proper countryside gallop. London parks are poor substitutes for our northern landscape. You turn to him gratefully. I've been looking forward to it, my lord. William, you haven't forgotten your promise to show me the new foal, Lady Sophia interrupts, her tone implying some private arrangement between them. Later, perhaps, he replies smoothly. The grooms have brought out the horses. Shall we? Outside, a groom leads forward a beautiful dapple grey mare, taller and more elegant than the horse you rode in London. This is Artemis, the Marquis tells you. She's been my sister's favourite, but Margaret insisted you should have her for the duration of your stay. She's beautiful, you say, stroking the mare's velvet nose, but I wouldn't want to deprive Lady Margaret of her mount. Nonsense, Lady Margaret says, joining you. I have half a dozen to choose from, and Artemis deserves a rider who will appreciate her. She's wasted on my sedate park outings. With the Marquess's assistance, you mount the spirited mare, who dances slightly beneath you, eager to be off. As the rest of the party mounts up, you notice Lady Sophia being helped onto a flashy chestnut by the groom, her disappointed expression suggesting she'd hoped for the Marquess's assistance. The Duke leads the procession as you set off, the Duchess riding sedately beside him. You find yourself positioned between the Marquis and Lady Margaret, with Lady Sophia just behind, clearly displeased with the arrangement. Caroline, you note, is riding alongside Rob Pembroke, their conversation appearing stiff but civil. Your mother watches them with obvious interest, perhaps revising her understanding of your sister's past in light of your recent revelations. Once beyond the formal gardens, the countryside opens up beautifully. Rolling hills, patches of woodland, streams cutting through meadows dotted with wildflowers. It's a landscape to make a country girl's heart sing after weeks in London. What do you think of our northern wilderness? The Marquis asks as you pause at the crest of a hill. The rest of the party spread out below. It's magnificent, you reply honestly. It reminds me of Derbyshire, but wilder somehow, less tamed. Like its inhabitants, perhaps, he suggests with a smile. Then, glancing to ensure no one is within earshot, he adds in a lower voice, I must apologise for my father's formality. He can be intimidating until one grows accustomed to his ways. There's no need to apologise. All fathers are protective of their sons' choices, some more aggressively than others. A shadow crosses his face. But let's not allow that to dim such a beautiful morning. I've been looking forward to showing you the estate since the moment you agreed to visit. The sincerity in his voice warms you despite your lingering concerns. Whatever complexities lie beneath the surface of his family relationships, his regard for you seems genuine. The ride continues, with the party eventually stopping beside a picturesque lake for a light outdoor luncheon prepared by servants who have somehow preceded you there. It's a scene of perfect aristocratic leisure, elegant people in elegant clothes, dining on elaborate provisions in the midst of carefully maintained wilderness. You find yourself seated on a blanket with Lady Margaret, Caroline, and, unfortunately, Lady Sophia, who has manoeuvred herself into your group with practiced social skill. The men are gathered nearby, with the Marquis engaged in what appears to be a serious conversation with his father. William looks well, doesn't he? Lady Sophia remarks, her gaze fixed on the Marquis. Country air always did suit him better than London smoke. I keep telling him he should spend more time at Westmoreland Hall rather than that dreary townhouse. The presumption in her tone, the suggestion that she and the Marquis regularly discuss his living arrangements, is clearly intended to unsettle you. Lady Margaret, however, comes to your rescue. My brother's residence choices are dictated by Elizabeth's needs more than his preferences, she says firmly, and I found the London house far from dreary when I visited last month. Miss Harrington made quite an impression on my niece, by the way. Elizabeth has talked of little else but showing her the tree house since you arrived. Lady Sophia's smile tightens. How sweet. Children are so easily impressed by novelty. Or by genuine kindness, Caroline interjects, her tone mild but her meaning clear. An awkward silence falls, broken only when Robert Pembroke approaches your group, his attention fixed on Carolyn. "Miss Carolyn, I wonder if I might prevail upon you for a turn about the lake, for old time's sake." Your sister's face betrays nothing of the turmoil she must feel at this request from the man who broke her heart 7 years ago. "If you wish, Mr. Pembroke," she replies with cool dignity, rising to accept his offered arm. As they walk away, you notice a flash of genuine emotion cross Lady Sophia's face. Concern for her brother, perhaps. It's the first hint you've seen that beneath her calculated exterior, she might actually care for someone besides herself. The afternoon progresses with various amusements, some guests fishing in the lake, others sketching the scenery, a few returning to the house for rest. You find yourself walking with the Marquis along a wooded path, Lady Margaret thoughtfully accompanying you as chaperone but keeping a discreet distance ahead. "My sister likes you," the Marquis observes. "That's significant. She was very protective of Eleanor and is even more so of Elizabeth. Her approval isn't easily won." "I like her as well," you reply. "She seems refreshingly genuine in a world of careful performances." "Yes, Margaret never did master the art of social fakery, thank God." He glances at you. "Neither have you, I think. It's one of the things I most admire about you." The compliment, simply stated but heartfelt, means more than all the flowery praise you've received from other suitors. "Thank you, though my mother would say it's a failing rather than a virtue." He laughs. "Mothers rarely appreciate the qualities that make their daughters most interesting. They'd prefer we all fit neatly into prescribed roles." "And what about fathers?" you ask, thinking of the Duke's stern countenance. A shadow crosses his face. "They can be even more rigid in their expectations, especially when those expectations are bound up in centuries of family, tradition." This seems an opening to address the tensions Lady Wexford hinted at. "Your father seems formidable." That's a diplomatic way of putting it. He hesitates, then continues more quietly. "My father has very specific ideas about what a future Duchess should be. He and Eleanor disagreed on many things. It caused strain. Between them, or between you and Eleanor as well." He looks surprised by the directness of the question. "You've been speaking to Lady Wexford, I see. She paid us a call before we left London. She seemed to think I should understand what I might be getting into." For a moment he's silent, contemplating the path ahead. Then he stops, turning to face you directly. "Eleanor was brilliant, passionate, and completely unprepared for the constraints of her position. My father expected her to abandon her intellectual pursuits in favour of more suitable activities for a marchioness. He sighs. "I failed to stand up for her as I should have. I was caught between loyalty to her and duty to my family name. By the time I realised my mistake, she was pregnant with Elizabeth, and then..." The pain in his voice is raw, even after 6 years. "I'm sorry," you say softly. "It must have been terrible to lose her." "It was, but her death taught me something important." His gaze holds yours intently. "That some things matter more than duty or tradition. That happiness, once found, shouldn't be sacrificed to others' expectations. I promised myself I wouldn't make the same mistake twice. The implication is clear, and your heart beats faster despite your determination to remain cautious." "And your father? Would he accept a second marchioness with a mind of her own?" "He'll have to," he says simply, "because I won't settle for less, nor will I subject another woman I care for to his disapproval without standing firmly beside her." Before you can respond to this near declaration, a distant voice calls your name. Elizabeth has found you, racing down the path with her governess trailing behind, apologising for the interruption. "Miss Harrington, Papa, I've been looking everywhere." Grandmama says the rain is coming and everyone's to return to the house, but I wanted to show you the tree house first. She's breathless with excitement, her dark curls escaping their ribbons. The Marquis smiles fondly at his daughter. The tree house will have to wait for tomorrow, Lizzie. Your grandmother is right about the weather. He nods toward gathering clouds on the horizon. Elizabeth's face falls. But tomorrow you promise to take Lady Sophia to see the new foals. You feel a small, irrational pang at this reminder of his prior commitment to the beautiful widow. He notices your expression and quickly clarifies. Lady Sophia expressed interest in our breeding program. As a courtesy to her father, who's been a long-time supporter of my stables, I offered a brief tour. It won't take more than an hour. I don't mind waiting, you assure him, though the thought of Lady Sophia monopolizing his attention is less than pleasant. You could come too, Elizabeth suggests brightly. Lady Sophia knows all about horses. She told me she used to ride with Papa all the time before he married Mamma. This innocent revelation of a longer history between the Marquis and Lady Sophia than he's acknowledged adds another layer of complexity to the situation. Before either of you can respond, however, the first drops of rain begin to fall, and the return to the house becomes an immediate necessity. The evening brings a formal dinner, the first of many elaborate entertainments planned for the house party. You're seated far from the Marquess, beside an elderly baron who talks exclusively of his gout and the declining quality of port since his youth. From your position, you can see the Marquess at the other end of the table, Lady Sophia placed strategically beside him by the Duchess's arrangement of the seating. The next day passes in a similar fashion. Group activities carefully orchestrated to showcase the estate's grandeur. Brief moments of connection with the Marquis, interrupted by social obligations or Lady Sophia's determined presence, and the constant evaluating gaze of the Duke of Harrington. Caroline and Robert Pembroke appear to have reached some kind of understanding during their lakeside walk. They're often found in conversation, their manner suggesting a tentative rebuilding of their former connection. Your mother watches with barely contained curiosity, but, for once, refrains from interfering. On the third day, as promised, the Marquis takes Lady Sophia to see the new foals. You spend the morning with Lady Margaret and Elizabeth, finally visiting the famed treehouse, an elaborate structure built in a massive oak, complete with tiny furniture and real glass windows. Papa had it built for me after Mama died, Elizabeth explains as you admire the craftsmanship. He said everyone needs a place that's just their own. The thoughtfulness of the gift, the care taken to create this special retreat for a grieving child, speaks volumes about the Marquis as a father. It's yet another glimpse of the man behind the title, the real person beneath the social performance of aristocratic masculinity. Lady Margaret, watching you with Elizabeth, smiles approvingly. You're good with her, she observes when the child is momentarily distracted by a squirrel. Not everyone is. Many ladies find her rather overwhelming. I find her delightful, you reply honestly. She reminds me of myself at that age, curious about everything, unwilling to be confined by expectations. Yes, William said the same thing. It's one of the reasons She stops abruptly, perhaps realizing she's about to reveal too much. Well, suffice it to say, my brother values authenticity more than most men of his station. The afternoon brings another group excursion, this time to the nearby village where the Marquis is greeted with genuine warmth by the locals. You notice how he knows many by name, inquires after families, shows real interest in their concerns. It's a side of aristocratic life rarely glimpsed in London ballrooms, the responsibilities that come with privilege, the relationship between landowner and tenant that, when handled with care, benefits both. That evening, a ball is held in the grand ballroom of Westmoreland Hall, with neighbouring families invited to join the house party guests. It's less elaborate than London affairs, but no less governed by the rigid rules of Regency social etiquette. Every dance, every conversation, every gesture is noted and interpreted by watchful eyes. The Marquis claims you for the first dance, a significant public statement in itself, and then again for the supper dance. Lady Sophia's face tightens with displeasure as she's partnered with Robert Pembroke instead, forced to watch as you and the Marquis lead the procession into supper. At the supper table, seated beside the Marquis at last, you find the courage to ask about his history with Lady Sophia directly. "I hope I'm not being improper," you begin carefully, "but I've gathered there's more history between you and Lady Sophia than you initially suggested." He sighs, setting down his fork. "I should have been more forthcoming. Sophia and I grew up together. Our estates adjoin, and our fathers have been allies in Parliament for decades. There was an expectation, never formalised but understood, that we might eventually marry." "And did you court her?" "Not officially, no, but we were often paired at social events, and I escorted her during her first season. When I met Eleanor, however, everything changed. I fell in love, much to my father's dismay and Sophia's family's disappointment." "And Lady Sophia herself?" He hesitates. "She was unhappy. She'd counted on our eventual marriage, I think. After Eleanor died, she assumed we would naturally resume where we'd left off. My lack of interest has been difficult for her to accept. Yet you invited her to this house party. My father insisted. The Pembrokes are still important allies, and he believes I should reconsider Sophia as a suitable match, a belief I do not share." His gaze holds yours intently. "My affections are engaged elsewhere, as I believe I've made clear." The directness of this near declaration takes your breath away. Before you can respond, however, the Duke approaches your table, his timing impeccable as always. "William, a word," he says, "not a request but a command." The Marquis excuses himself with obvious reluctance, leaving you to finish your supper alone with your thoughts. After supper, the dancing resumes. You stand up with various partners, but the Marquis is nowhere to be seen. Neither is the Duke. Whatever word was needed has apparently extended to a lengthy private conversation. It's near midnight when the Marquis finally reappears, his expression strained but determined. He makes his way directly to you through the crowded ballroom. "Miss Harrington, might I have a moment of your time?" he asks formally. "In the library, with your mother as chaperone, of course." Your heart races. This is it. The moment every unmarried lady at a country house party anticipates and dreads in equal measure. The private interview that can mean only one thing. A proposal is imminent. Your mother, hovering nearby as always, practically vibrates with excitement as she follows you and the Marquis to the library. A magnificent room lined with thousands of volumes, a fire crackling in the massive stone fireplace despite the summer warmth. "I'll just wait by the door," your mother says, making a show of giving you privacy while remaining within proper chaperoning distance. Alone, or as alone as Regency propriety allows, the Marquis takes both your hands in his expression more serious than you've ever seen it. "Miss Harrington," he stops, then smiles slightly. "No, I think the time for such formality is past. May I call you by your Christian name, at least in this moment?" You nod, unable to speak past the lump in your throat. I had planned a more romantic setting for this. The rose garden, perhaps, or beside the lake at sunset. But circumstances have forced my hand. He takes a deep breath. I have just had a rather difficult conversation with my father. He has reminded me in no uncertain terms of my duty to the family name, to tradition, to the expectations of our position. Your heart sinks. Is this a rejection then? Has the Duke's disapproval ended things before they've truly begun? But the Marquis continues, his grip on your hands tightening. I told him that while I respect tradition, I will not sacrifice my happiness or yours to it, that I have found in you someone who embodies everything I value, intelligence, authenticity, kindness, that I love you, and I will marry you with or without his blessing. Love. The word hangs in the air between you, so rarely spoken in the calculated world of Regency courtship. Not advantage, not suitability, not alliance. Love. My father was displeased, the Marquis admits with a wry smile. But he is not unreasonable, merely stubborn. He values strength of character, even when it opposes his wishes, and he wants, above all, my happiness and Elizabeth's well-being. He has agreed to respect my choice, though I suspect it will take time for him to fully embrace it. He drops to one knee, still holding your hands, the formal pose of a Regency proposal. I am asking you to embark on a challenging journey with me. Being a Marchioness, eventually a Duchess, is not an easy role. There will be expectations, duties, constraints, but I promise you this, we will face them together as partners. I will not ask you to surrender your true self to convention, as Eleanor was asked to do, so I must know, can you accept me with all the complications my position entails? Will you marry me? The question hangs between you, weighted with everything you've learned about him, about his world, about the complexities that await if you say yes. Lady Wexford's warnings echo in your mind, but so too does the memory of the Marquis's smile when he speaks of poetry, his tenderness with his daughter, his promise just now to stand beside you against whatever pressures you might face together. Yes, you say simply, I will marry you. He rises, drawing you close in a gesture that skirts the very edges of propriety, even with your mother standing nearby. Thank you, he whispers, for taking a chance on me, on us. The formalities follow swiftly. Your mother is summoned properly, then your father. The Marquis makes his official request for your hand, which your father grants with genuine pleasure. The Duke and Duchess are informed, the announcement prepared for the next day's breakfast when all the house party guests will be gathered. In the privacy of your bedroom that night, Caroline helps you prepare for sleep, her expression a mixture of joy and concern. Are you certain, she asks quietly, marriage to the Marquis will mean a life very different from anything you've known? I'm as certain as anyone can be, you reply. He's not perfect, nor is the world he inhabits, but he sees me, the real me, and values what he sees. That's rare enough in any social circle. She smiles, squeezing your hand. Then I'm happy for you, truly. The following morning the announcement is made. Congratulations pour in from the assembled guests, though Lady Sophia's felicitations are notably absent. She pleads a headache and remains in her room. The Duke, true to his son's prediction, is correct but cool in his acknowledgement of the engagement. Welcome to the family, Miss Harrington, he says formally. I trust you understand the responsibility you are assuming. I believe I do, Your Grace, you reply, meeting his gaze directly, though I'm sure I have much still to learn. He studies you for a moment, then nods, almost approvingly. Yes, I believe you do understand. Good. That puts you ahead of most. The Duchess is warmer, embracing you with genuine affection. My dear girl, I'm so pleased. William has been so much happier since he met you, and Elizabeth adores you already. The child herself is ecstatic, bouncing around the breakfast room with excitement. Does this mean you'll live here with us, and come to London too, and read me stories every night? You laugh, kneeling to her level. It means we'll be a family, yes, though the details will take some time to arrange. The rest of the house party becomes essentially a pre-wedding celebration. The initial 2 weeks extend to 3 as guests linger to participate in the festivities. Letters fly back and forth to London, where your mother's friends receive the news with varying degrees of envy and admiration. Settlements are discussed, wedding plans begun, your new position as future Marchioness acknowledged by all. In the midst of it all, you and the Marquis, William, as you now call him in private, find moments to be together, always properly chaperoned, always within the bounds of Regency propriety, but with a new freedom to speak openly about your future together. It won't always be easy, he warns, as you walk in the rose garden one evening, Lady Margaret discreetly trailing behind. There will be those who question your suitability, who watch for any misstep, including your father, especially my father, at least initially. But he'll come around once he knows you better. He values intelligence and strength of character, even when he pretends otherwise. You consider this. And Lady Sophia? Will she continue to be part of your social circle? Her family will, certainly, but Sophia herself is already planning an extended visit to relatives in Bath. I think she'll keep her distance until the initial talk dies down. He squeezes your hand. Are you having second thoughts? No, you assure him. Just adjusting my expectations. This is all very different from the life I'd imagined. What had you imagined? He asks curiously. You think about it. Something quieter, I suppose. A country house, a small circle of friends, books and conversation and children. Less grand, less public. We can still have that, you know. Not all the time. There are duties we can't escape. But Westmoreland Hall can be a refuge as well as a showpiece, and I promise you time and space for the things that matter to you. It's the best assurance he can offer, given the realities of your future position, and you believe him that he'll try at least to create a life that balances duty with personal happiness. As your engagement extends into weeks, then months, you observe the various reactions to your unexpected social elevation. Some friends offer sincere congratulations, delighted by your good fortune. Others become sycophantic, suddenly aware of your future influence. A few drift away entirely, perhaps intimidated by your new status or envious of your success in the marriage market. Caroline and Robert Pembroke reach their own understanding during this time. Not an engagement. Too much history and hurt lies between them for such a swift resolution, but a tentative second chance, a willingness to see if what was lost might be rebuilt. Elizabeth becomes your shadow, eager to show you every corner of what will be your home, to tell you every story, to include you in her small world. The child's easy acceptance is perhaps the most gratifying aspect of your new position. Lady Margaret becomes a friend and ally, guiding you through the complexities of aristocratic life with humour and practicality. The trick, she confides, is knowing which rules matter and which can be quietly bent when necessary. And William, the Marquis who will soon be your husband, continues to reveal himself as a man of depth and principle beneath the social performance required by his position. Not perfect, certainly. There are moments of frustration, of misunderstanding, of adjustment to each other's habits and expectations. But there is also genuine connection, intellectual and emotional, that promises partnership beyond the merely advantageous match society sees. The wedding itself, when it finally arrives, is a grand affair held at Westminster Abbey, with royalty in attendance and coverage in every society paper. Your mother is beside herself with pride. Your father walks you down the aisle with tears in his eyes, whispering, "Remember who you are, my dear. The title changes your address, not your character." Words to live by in the new life that awaits, a life you've chosen with open eyes, aware of its challenges but hopeful for its possibilities. The Regency courtship game, with all its rules and rituals, has led you here, to a marriage that society deems advantageous, but that you enter for reasons far beyond social climbing. A rare outcome in a world where practical considerations typically override personal feelings.